Lee Summit is your destination for big city vibes and small town charm.
Head to the downtown Lee Summit Farmers Market, where local meets fresh. Then grab a cup of coffee and discover a variety of shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new beer at one of our 6 locally owned breweries. Cool off with some handcrafted cocktails at happy hour. End the night with live music and good company. Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hello, Lee Summit. Here's your flash briefing for the week of May 20th. City Council will meet for regular session Tuesday night at 6 in Council Chambers in City Hall. If you can't watch, quickly catch up on City Council meetings by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter, which breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityfls.net. Heads up drivers, some exciting news. Southeast 2nd Street is set to reopen to through traffic by the end of the day on Friday, May 24th. But on Tuesday, May 28th, a section of Southeast 3rd Street between Douglas and Johnson Streets will close for infrastructure work associated with the downtown Market Plaza for approximately 6 weeks, weather permitting. Find more information, including detour routes, on the city's website. And mark your calendar for the 4th Friday's Art Walk in downtown Lee Summit this Friday, May 24th. Enjoy local artist exhibits and live music performances inside and outside of participating shops and restaurants. Also, grab your blankets and chairs for the first Music in the Park at Howard Station Park beginning at 6:30 p.m. Get all the details at downtownls.org. And a reminder, City Hall will be closed Monday, May 27th for Memorial Day. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
Welcome to the Lee Summit Sign Department. We are going to walk you through our process from start to finish. We make signs as needed here. It's not like we just go out into the field and place a speed limit sign here, or no parking here. Our traffic engineers, they go through and they'll do field studies. They'll send us down an engineering work order for us to go out, place new signs or remove signs as needed. Coming from the material, our blanks come in and they're just aluminum blanks. We can put our white, our red, our fluorescent yellow, green, whatever. And basically what it looks like is just that there. Throw it up into the roller. And once we got it covered, take it to our work table here, and Tim will cut the corners, cut all the access off to where it's lined up right. As far as the plotter and the software that we use, there's a street name sign there, and he's gonna go ahead and print that out on the plotter so you can see the plotter and how it operates and runs. There's standards for the height, even just on letters on the sign blank. Basically what we have on the computer there is it's pretty much set up to those. And it goes through, it's got a very small but sharp needle that goes through and cuts everything out, letter by letter. Once that's done cutting, our next stage would be bringing it over here. Currently picking out the sign letters right now. We call it weeding or picking, or however you want to call it. Next, putting it on the transfer tape. Then after it's taped, we bring it over to the roller. That's where we apply it to the actual sign blank. And we'll roll it through one time just to get the air bubbles out. And the last stage is basically just taking the transfer tape off the front of it. And there's a finished product of the street name sign. We'll take you out to the field and show you our process that we go through. We're going to go out and follow our sign guys and get something installed for you. This is where we check our underground utilities. Tim, you got AT&T?
AT&T is back here.
Evergy, Google, so we should be good to go. We normally put all of our stuff together out in the field. Then once the base is installed, we'll go ahead and put the post in there. We've come up to perfect. And that's how we do it. Simple, quick.
Traditionally, we think as police officers, those responding to law enforcement needs within the community. But honestly, we are there to serve our citizens, and our citizens do go into crisis. They do have mental health crises, and we're being called to those scenes on a regular basis. In order to help serve those citizens better, we did initiate the Crisis Intervention Team Program. These are officers that are specially trained to de-escalate crisis situations. Recently, we've brought co-responders onto the scene, licensed qualified mental health professionals housed within our police department, and they respond with those officers directly to those scenes where a crisis is occurring so they can interact with that citizen and get them the help they need right there on that scene.
The co-responders are either a bachelor or master level in a behavioral health related field. They wear plain clothes, they don't carry weapons or anything like that.
I have a police radio that I listen to all day. Listen for, those key words: mental health, behavioral health, crisis.
There's a lot of officers that just call for me. I have my own radio number.
I also have the ability to self-dispatch to them and say 982 is en route.
Officers en route, 914, Armstrong.
So typically I arrive after they've made it safe. I'll make contact and get kind of the rundown, and then I just kind of jump right in.
I'm like, hey, my name's Allison. I'm a mental health professional. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take you to jail or arrest you.
Sometimes all a person needs is a voice, someone neutral, someone outside that, can listen. I do a lot of safety planning, including family, their support network, who's close to you. If they're home alone, who can come over and hang out with you today? Can we lock away your sharps? Can we put up your meds? Do you need meds? Can we get you over to the urgent care to get you assessed for your medications? Some of them also are like, oh, I'm so glad you came. This made me feel so much better.
Our main goal as co-responders is to, one, get people connected to the services that they need, and also divert from emergency rooms and jails.
And they almost get a different view of the police responding. That lets me know you care and the officers care.
Please, how can we help you?
My husband has...
In 2020, we had 722 mental health related calls for service. 2022, by that time, 1,479. These mental health related calls for service are increasing. How we're responding to that is increasing the number of crisis intervention team officers we have available, as well as the number of co-responders we have available to respond on these calls.
So what I think is important for the community to know about the co-responder program is that we're here, we exist. All you have to do when you call 911 is ask for us. Say, hey, I want a co-responder to respond to this crisis, and we'll go. I was really struggling about 8 years ago on my personal journey with mental health, and I met some amazing social workers and amazing programs that have helped me get to where I am today. I really couldn't see myself doing anything else. We want to help, and that's what we love to do.
So I had a client, we got a call, she had some suicidal ideations, and she really felt that she had nobody. And and getting to know her story and getting to know who comes around and sees you, well, then we found a support person, and they responded immediately, and we made a plan. I called back and checked on her in an hour, and then I checked on her in 2 hours. We were able to get her into the additional services to where she talks to someone every week or more. I just took a person that really just thought they had nobody and nobody would show up for them, and show them you do. And you'll be amazed who is in your corner if you just simply say, I need a little help.
It's member level. Thank you, Mayor. Great presentation, Ryan. Thank you. Is there any indicator that shows, are we supporting a need with...
They talk about like gym rats, kids that grew up with their dads that were coaches. Like I was a city hall rat. My dad, Tom Lovell, was hired as a parks administrator in 1978 and spent 40 years in public service here in Lee Summit. I would go up on the weekends when he was working, and I'd run around and play and do things, and I didn't know what he was doing at the time, but I just knew that was part of our weekend routine some days, was to go up and hang out at City Hall. Being part of a city from a young age to now in my adult life, you reap so many benefits from that. The people you know, you care more for something that you've been a part of. My wife and I knew we wanted to raise a family. Just trying to find a community that we thought we could raise our children in, that was good to me. And it just felt like the right move as we were deciding on a city to come back to. Fortunate to have started a business in 2018. I founded Level Insurance Group, and we are a business insurance brokerage. So we help businesses procure insurance. Decided to throw our flag in the ground here in Lee Summit, and it's grown. I also have this passion for learning and curiosity, and I started a podcast series. So I really enjoy this opportunity where I sit down with business owners and tell their story, and get this out to other people in hopes that maybe it betters their life and gives them some inspiration or something. It's going to be a really exciting time, and obviously this city's in my blood. My dad's been a part of it for a long time, so I'm really excited. Thank you all. A lot of people would say I was crazy, right? So why do you throw your hand up and subject yourself to going into city politics? I think, especially as I've gotten older, I just felt, maybe a civic duty, like a responsibility to say, hey, this city's been great to me. Here's a way that I can give back and take some of my skills and put them to work for the people of this city. I wanted to bring a different, maybe way of thinking and take some of my business acumen and see areas that it may apply to how we develop and grow this community, and just give a different perspective. One of our biggest challenges, but also one of our biggest opportunities, is how do we develop and grow this community? We don't want to grow too fast, but we want to grow at a pace that helps support, who and what we are as a community. So, we've got a lot of opportunities, whether that be through development or parks. We've got a lot of land coming on board. So I just think it's important, it's a challenge, but it's also our greatest opportunity. And so we just got to be smart how we do that. It's just asking some different questions. I'm one that, I'm not contrarian for contrarian's sake. What I am is someone will tell me something, and then I want to get to that position with them by just asking thoughtful questions along the way. And then if I can get there, then I feel like we've answered everything we can to move that forward, versus, hey, here's kind of how we've done it. I'm never this is how we do it, this is how we've always done it, and this is how we'll continue to do it. Office of Council Member for District 2. All of my practical experience has put me in this position to serve, and I just raised my hand and said I want to do that. For which I was elected on April 5th, 2022. I feel this obligation to carry this legacy that my dad did, my family did, and then giving my kids an environment to grow up in that makes them want to come back. My kids have started rec sports through the Parks and Recreation system, and I'm watching them play soccer on this sport field that, my dad helped develop. And my dad's sitting there with me, right? I mean, that's the stuff that really matters in life.
Welcome, everyone. Would you please rise for the invocation and stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay. Again, welcome everyone. I'm calling to order the City of Lee Summit regular session number 4 as amended. Could I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Rader.
Present.
Councilmember Lovell. Councilmember DeMauro.
Here.
Councilmember Pryor.
Here.
Councilmember Hodges.
Here.
Councilmember Shields.
Here.
Councilmember Carlisle.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Here.
Mayor Baird.
Here. All right. Next is the approval of the agenda. I have a motion to adopt the agenda by Councilmember DeMauro and seconded by Councilmember Shields. Discussion? For discussion, Ms. Fowler-Curry, my computer's still restarting, so I'm going to have to do voice vote. Being no discussion, please cast your vote. And I'm an aye. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Next is the approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a motion? I have a motion to adopt by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. I'm an aye. If all votes are in, please record the vote. Thank you. Next would be, oh, I'm sorry, did it pass? It passed, didn't it? Okay. Next would be council roundtable. I will start it off. I wasn't here last week, so the one thing I want to make sure, it's really more for council discussion. We can always discuss in the council discussion if you want, but EDC did get everybody the agreement signed by May 10th, like they were, like we requested, and they also sent the bylaws. And I don't think we discussed that last week. Did you? No. So they did come in. I'm going to sign the letter and send it right back to them. They're meeting again May 21st. May 21st? Right. I'm sorry. They canceled that, and they're going to meet again. But they've sent a letter out to their investors. If you didn't get that letter, just request that from Mr. Dunning or from me, and I can send it to you. I know that they sent a letter out to the investors, just giving them an update as well. But they've got meetings scheduled for the next June 4th. They have meetings scheduled in the next 3 or 4 months. They have a timeline that's pretty aggressive as far as a bunch of meetings and such, and an after hours, I think. So with that said, typically council roundtable for everybody here is items of general interest, things going on in the community. Gosh, we're coming up on downtown days. When's that? Councilmember Shields?
Downtown days will be the June 7th through the 9th. This weekend is Memorial Day, obviously, and Summit Waves is opening, so everybody should go out and support our Parks Department. Yeah, shout out to that.
Wow, Summit Waves.
So I was just saying that Summit Waves is opening this weekend, so I hope everybody will go out and enjoy the sun there.
Okay. Anybody else on council? Okay. What's that? It's getting there. So Councilmember Shields already spoke, so I got your, okay. Next is the public hearings, looks like. The first public hearing tonight is on the tax increment financing 5-year update. So I'm closing the regular session, opening the matter. Opening the public hearing in the matter of let me start over. I will close the regular session, open the public hearing in the matter of the TIF tax increment 5-year update. Would all those wishing to speak to this matter please rise and be sworn in by the city clerk.
I do.
Mr. Elam.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Ryan Elam, Assistant City Manager. And I am here before you today to talk through our active...
Excuse me, just a second. Let's get the volume turned up, and then no more comments from the crowd in that way, okay? I can definitely take care of it, or you can go up here and talk to Ms. Curry Fowler, and she can get the message to us. So, Ms. Rader, would you please go back and make sure that those gentlemen know we need the volume turned up on the sound out here. Hold on. All right, test. Is that a little bit better? Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Mr. Elam, please.
Okay, again, Ryan Elam, Assistant City Manager, and I'm here before you today with our 5-year TIF public hearing. So this public hearing is a statutory requirement, and the purpose of the hearing is to determine if the redevelopment projects are making satisfactory progress under the proposed time schedule contained within those approved plans. Again, this is only talking about our active TIF projects, and it's only talking about the tax increment financing components of those, and it's the statutory requirement is solely focused on are they making satisfactory progress, and just a little bit on schedule and time schedules in the approved plans. generally our approved plans contain a very generalized schedule in there, and that schedule can be flexible over time. Now, statutorily, when a TIF plan comes before you and is presented and approved, there's 10 years for that project to become activated, if you will. Some of them activate that night, some of them allow a few things to get under construction because it might be a lengthier construction time period, it might take a couple of years, and then a project will come back and be activated after that. But they have a 10-year window to activate those project areas. After that 10-year period, there's a limit of 23 years that a TIF area can be active. And when I say active, that means collecting TIF revenues to pay off funds in accordance with the plan documents. Again, that's the purpose of this, is to review each one of those projects and the progress on that, and then other statutory requirements. That notice had to be given in a newspaper of general circulation. This was published in the Tribune as well as the Pulse to meet those requirements. So with that, what I have before you here is a general location of our active TIF projects. I say general location because they're not surveyed or anything like that, and it's just an exhibit to kind of give you an idea of where these projects are at as we go through. And there's 11 active TIF projects that we'll be discussing this evening. So as I go through these projects, I'm going to go through the project relatively quickly, again, with the purpose of the hearing being to determine if they're making satisfactory progress. So first project I'm going to talk about is 2nd and Douglas TIF, or Elevate 114, as everybody might be aware of. This project has been constructed. You can see here that this project was activated on May 7th of 2019, but we haven't collected any revenue yet at this point, and that's because this project was part of a larger incentive package that during the construction period, when it was owned through a Chapter 100 structure, there was no taxes collected on that during that period. So that has since ended, and we're expecting this to be the first year of TIF payments to occur this year. I guess let me back up 1 second. All of the numbers shown on the screen here are from our TIF annual reports. Most recently, that is dated June 30th of 2023. So every year, each TIF project has an annual report filed with the state as well. Next project, 291 North and Highway 50 TIF. This project has one project area that's been activated. There's 4 project areas total in this. This was a city-initiated TIF. That's why private sector developer is listed as NA at this point. And the purpose of this TIF was to help with the 291 North interchange and specifically the relocation of the Highway Patrol facility. That project is currently under construction near MoDOT facilities. And one area has been activated, but we have not received any revenue off of that single area that's been activated to this point. No other costs have been incurred at this point either. Discovery Park. Discovery Park, again, is the project up at the northwest corner of Chipman and Douglas. Colburn and Douglas. There are 4 redevelopment areas in that project. They're currently working on phase 1. It's currently under construction. There are no active projects on there, but that is a very recent project. The East Highway 50 corridor TIF, this was a TIF that had 4 project areas. Only 2 of those areas were ever activated. And then one of those areas has been activated and completed and terminated already as project area 4. It's what we would call fully operational at this point, which means it's currently in repayment. There's no developer that is being reimbursed at this point. The developer was reimbursed for project area 4, and that's why project area 4 is listed as terminated as of July 20th of 2021. So this is just continuing to be fully operational at this point. I-470 and View High TIF, that's better known as the Paragon Star area. That project is currently under construction. The first area, again, on this was activated November 7th of 2023. So therefore, there is no revenues that show up on this slide because this was as of June 30th of 2023. So we're expecting there to be some revenue associated with this throughout this next year. The Longview Farm TIF, there is multiple project areas on this. It's been amended several times. the Longview Farm and the new Longview TIF are kind of interwoven together. They're relatively complicated with a number of different project areas throughout. However, this portion of it is currently constructed and fully operational and expected to be complete in 2025 of this. And so the Longview Farm TIF is really a subset. It was redone in 2015 and kind of expanded into that new Longview Farm TIF area. Yeah, again, that is expected to be complete in 2025. Again, rolling into the new Longview TIF, you can see the December 2015, and it's been amended once. This project also has multiple project areas. I would say that the status of this is really several statuses based off of the multiple project areas. There are some that are fully operational, there are some that are under construction, and there are some that we would consider inactive as they wait for construction to occur on that. The Ritter Plaza TIF, this is the area out in front of the Walmart along 291 North, and that area is fully activated, fully operational, and is expected to retire in 2030. Streets of West Pryor, again, this is another project that's operational with a few components that are still under construction, the very kind of last pieces of that. But you can see that it's got revenue coming in. And again, that was another large project that was part of a larger incentive district. So that was activated in 2019. There were portions of that that were under a Chapter 100 status. And as they roll in and roll out of that Chapter 100 status, the revenues start beginning to be collected and reimbursed through this project. The Summit Fair TIF, or the Lee Summit East TIF, again, that was approved in August of '06. There's been several amendments to that. This is another project that had multiple project areas. However, not all of them are still active. Project areas 1 and 5 are the active projects, and that's the main Summit Fair area as well as the area south of Chipman Road. The unique thing about this one, we had project areas 2A and 2B, which were kind of on the northern side of the site, north of Blue Parkway there. Those projects were activated early, however, nothing ever happened on that, and so they were terminated due to inactivity on those areas 2A and 2B. So you consider that this would be fully operational and essentially in repayment, and is expected to retire in 2030 as well. The last TIF to talk about is the Village of View High TIF. It's just 3rd and View High. This project has had no activity on it, and we would consider it an inactive status. And in order for this plan to move forward, it would have to have a project area activated by 2027. If no project areas are activated by August 24th of 2017, this TIF plan essentially expires with no activity on it. And I said I was going to be kind of brief and run through this with the purpose of the hearing, so I'm available for questions.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Elam or staff? Yes, Councilmember DeMoro.
Thank you, Mayor. Ryan, on the Village of View High TIF, I don't know if it'd be appropriate for you to comment on what is actually going on. I mean, is that project completely dead? I know there's been no activity, but what can you share? Is there anything?
Since we're in the public hearing regarding the progress of that, I'm not really sure there's a much that we can go into on that other than it's currently sitting inactive.
Mm-hmm. And what was the date you said if it remains inactive?
August 24th of 2027. So
okay.
10 years from the plan approval date.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, Councilmember Carlisle.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if you want to answer this in the public hearing either. And this isn't specific to one, but if you were to have an area that has never done anything, such as this Village at View High, can that area change hands and still keep the TIF?
Yes, I believe that is the case, but they would have to come before the city council as part of a transfer, and that would depend on the language in the TIF contract, essentially, and it may require amendments and things like that, but it is transferable with approval of the city council.
With approval of the city council. Okay, thank you.
I'm referring back to legal counsel, and they shook their head yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Questions? So can you kind of elaborate on that though a little bit and just say what happens if, you didn't put the expirations on some of these, did you, Mr. Elam?
No, I did not put the expirations on some of them that are currently performing.
I just wondered about, I know Longview hasn't performed as well because it didn't develop out early on, especially during the recession and such, the way everyone hoped, but it seems to be coming along now. There's a bunch of activity out there. So what happens if we get towards the expiration and we're still short? It comes back to council for consideration?
Yeah, that would need to be a whole new TIF plan because they're statutorily limited to that 23 years of collection. And since those are pay-as-you-go TIFs, so essentially what would happen is the developer would not be able to be reimbursed through that funding source without a new funding source and a new plan being developed.
Okay. There's a bunch of activity out there. It's just a bunch of what ifs, you know.
And I believe with that case specifically, the actions in 2015 took that into consideration by expanding the area and creating a new TIF plan that kind of overlays the existing TIF plan.
And how did that come about to be?
I believe I'll let David Bushek discuss that.
I just wonder, we're always trying to stay ahead and plan, and, Councilmember DeMora was asking about View High. I mean, when do we take it into consideration? Like you're talking about, like you did in 2015, and what did you exactly do?
Yep. So for the Longview TIF, David Bushak, Chief Counsel of Economic Development and Planning. For the Longview TIF plan, the first TIF plan was approved in 2003. There were 10 separate redevelopment projects tagged in that original plan. 4 of them were activated within that 10-year time frame. So when we reached the end of that 10-year time frame, which was 2013, and the developer at that time wanted to proceed with more development, they were out of time to activate any of the remaining TIF projects, so we had to do a new TIF plan to start the new 10-year clock to activate the remaining projects. There were, as of today, there's 16 separate projects under the 2015 TIF plan, and I'll say several of those have been activated. I don't know what the count is, but not all of them. So next year, we will reach the 10-year mark where either all of those remaining projects need to be activated or we'll lose the ability to do that. And that's the point in time that we'll face a decision. The council will face a decision on should you go ahead and activate the projects for the areas where nothing's coming out of the ground right now in the hopes that something will within the next 23 years, or is it a better policy to not activate those areas because there's no immediate development? That will be the question.
Okay.
And then for the Village of View High TIF, the current state is that the developer has lost control of the project. UMB, as the lender to the developer, has control of the property today. And we have been in discussions with the bank regarding what they may or may not want to do with the TIF. So what Ryan said is accurate. Council action of some sort would need to happen. If they would like to assign the current rights under the existing TIF contract to a new developer, if they can line up a developer, then it would be the assignment, as Ryan explained. And if the bank comes forward and says we'd like to do a reset, whatever that might be, a full reset of the TIF and the CID, then that would be before you also. So in either case, it would require council action.
Good. Thank you. Did you have any exhibits to enter?
No, just the presentation and the hearing.
All right.
So.
Are there any, is there anyone here that wishes to speak in favor or in opposition to this presentation? Any additional questions from council? Any further comment, Mr. Elam?
Thank you for your time.
Hearing no further testimony, I'm closing the public hearing and reopening the regular discussion. Is there any council comments or discussion? All right. Nothing to vote on this one. That was just a presentation for the public hearing. So I will move on to the next agenda item. Going to close the regular session and open the public hearing in the matter of agenda item 4B, which is rezoning from RP2 to CP2 and preliminary development plan. Take 5 oil change, 400 Northeast 291 Highway, Driven Assets LLC is the applicant. Would all those wishing to speak to this matter, including public commenters, please rise to be sworn in by the city clerk. Thank you. All right, does the applicant have a presentation?
Good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Todd Menace, and I'm with Driven Assets. I'm the developer and owner of the Take 5 oil change franchise in Kansas City. If you're not aware of what Take 5 is, it's a little bit different. I went ahead and put kind of some of our advertising here. We're strictly oil change. So 10 minutes, you drive in, you never get out of your car, you drive out. We try and keep just a nice family-oriented experience where we're giving treats to the kids, to the dogs. There are no tire rotations, there's no brakes, there's no lifting cars up into the air. Obviously, if you're in the car, nobody wants to go up in their car. We do sell air filters, coolant exchange, cabin filters, and windshield wipers as additional services. People can come through if they're a client and get all that stuff topped off whenever they want as part of the service. So it's a very simple, it's different than your traditional Valvoline, Jiffy, where there's a lot of services provided. You just come in, do your oil change, and leave. The site that we're talking about is a pretty large site, 1.73 acres, adjacent to this shopping center. At the north end of the shopping center is Summit Automotive, which was previously a Midas, that I think is 2 bays and does all sorts of automotive work. We are only a 1,415 square foot building. It'll be located right in this area right here. As you can see, our hours of operation are 7 to 7 Monday through Friday, 7 to 6 on Saturday, and 9 to 4 on Sunday. We're also going to install a boundary fence along here. I think there's a boundary fence that goes right here as well. And we will not have any signage on the back of the building facing to the west or to the north. So generally speaking, we don't have anybody driving through. We don't have any speaker boxes. We don't allow our employees to play music in the bays. So it's you drive in, they get under your car, they pull the plug, drain the oil, fill it back up, and out you go. On average, we have about 35 cars that come through on an average day. We do currently have 4 other locations in Lansing, Overland Park, Belton, and Blue Springs. And we are currently scheduled to open a 5th one in Independence at 291 and 23rd Street on the northeast corner there. So I do know that there's been some questions about the fill dirt that went into the site previously. We've done a geotech on the site, and for our size building, we don't have any issues with the soils on the site. In fact, we're actually going to do some underground detention because draining the site and maintaining, that existing waterway that's to the north and not trying to fill that up. We've worked with staff in terms of designing that system. Like I said, underground detention as well as some above ground detention. And that's another nice feature of this. We've got 1.74 acres. We're only putting a 1,400 square foot building. So there's not a lot of impervious coverage area here where there's going to be a lot of space for rainwater to kind of absorb into the ground because it's such a small building. And we don't have a lot of parking. On average, we have 7 employees at the site at any given time. So that concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you, sir. We're going to have staff do the application, then we'll entertain questions and such.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, Shannon McGuire, Planning Manager. Please enter into the record Exhibit A, list of exhibits 1 through 19.
Enter into the record Exhibit A, 1 through 19, please.
All right, so before us, the applicant is seeking approval for that rezoning from RP2 to that CP2 that they requested, and approval of a PDP to construct that 1,415-foot oil change facility. North of the property, you can see here in the site plan, in that purple color, is a PO zone Pine Woods office development. The CP2 across the 291 there is CP2, and you kind of got the Hy-Vee over there with the fast food restaurants and the bank. South of the property is also CP2, and it's that commercial strip center with that major automotive repair on that north end cap of that particular property. East is 291, across 291. West, the property is zoned a mixture of RP2 and R1. The proposed development, as the applicant did state, is going to be limited to this little pad site here. There is significant grade change on this from this pad site down to the property lines, and given the creek and the streamway buffer requirements in there, no development will take place in the wooded area. The Ignite Comprehensive Plan land use map does identify this site as activity center for downtown. To guide future development, the comprehensive plan does establish a set of land use principles. One of those principles is to ensure a transition of land use patterns between higher intensive and lower intensive properties to make sure they're compatible and complementary, and to help maintain that community character. The proposed PDP is meeting this goal by providing that transition from and buffering from that high intensity and noise levels of 291 to the residential adjacent just to the west. Again, the proposed zoning district they are proposing is that CP2. The overall site is that 1.7 acres. The building is, again, a little over 1,400 square feet with a total height of 19 feet 10 inches. The FAR is 0.065, so well below the 0.55 allowed by the UDO. They are proposing 10 and are required 10 parking stalls, so they are meeting the UDO requirements when it comes to parking. So this kind of shows the surrounding zoning. The intent of the CP2 zoning district that they are proposing is to provide for a location of full range retail and office development servicing the community's needs. Should the subject rezoning and PDP be approved, the proposed oil change facility will meet all UDO requirements and will provide that needed service to our community. The proposed use is consistent and compatible with the uses in the surrounding area, specifically that automotive use already in the area, as well as to the other uses in the immediate area as well. The proposed building will utilize some different materials in the exterior elevations or exterior building. Includes some EPHIS, stucco, cultured stone veneer, as well as glass. The proposed building is compatible with the design and construction of existing buildings just to the south there and throughout the community as a whole. They are requesting a modification. Since the proposed zoning district is slightly different, or is different than the adjacent, they are required to have a screening buffer. However, given the topography of this particular lot, if they were to follow the UDO requirements of that buffer screen, they would have to have that buffer along the property line as well as that fence along that property line. And given that it's a 28-foot grade difference between the pad site and where that fence would go, it'd be ineffective and very problematic for maintenance. So what they are proposing is for all of the existing mature tree growth to stay, to create that vegetative buffer, but they are also requesting to move the required fence along the edge of that pad site to provide that additional buffer at the same grade level as the proposed building. So staff has reviewed that request and we are comfortable and find it to be reasonable. So with that, and the conditions of the conditions of approvals outlined here and in the staff letter,
The application does meet the goals of the Unite Comprehensive Plan, the requirements of the UDO, as well as the Design and Construction Manual, and I can yield for any questions you may have at this time.
Okay, thank you. Questions for staff or the applicant? Councilmember Shields.
Just a couple of questions. So the existing trees and vegetation, it's not a requirement that they keep that, they're just choosing to because of how the site's laid out, is that right? Like if,
Sorry, I didn't quite understand that.
sorry, the existing vegetation, trees, they're gonna keep those, it's not a requirement, they're choosing to because of the topography of the site, is that right?
So they are required a vegetative screen. The amount of trees and the maturity of those trees does meet the UDO requirements of that vegetative screen, and they are utilizing that to meet that portion of the screening requirement, and there's going to be no construction in that area. That area does have a creek as well, so there's heavy limitations of what you can do in that area given the creek and the buffers.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I was just curious, like if a different development were proposed, would they be able to take out a lot of that vegetation and still meet the requirement?
They would not be able to take out vegetation in that area because of the streamway corridor buffer requirements off of that stream.
Okay.
So there's really the pad site, what you see as the pad site, that's the limits of development.
Okay, good to know.
That would be
And
available.
then are there any concerns with drainage or anything on the site?
No, they are proposing a mix of underground and above ground detention for stormwater, so that's all been reviewed and it meets the UDO requirements as well.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Carlisle.
Thank you. So on these plans, I didn't see that it connects to the next parking lot or drive or whatever for the next division there.
South or
to their, to their site. So is that just a right in, right out off of 291? Yeah, do they connect to this retail center down here?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Right
it
here.
does connect?
Yep.
Oh, there. Okay, so, but it will be a right in, right out, or they can go through that driveway?
Correct. It's right in,
Okay.
right out on 291, or they can go out south onto Langsford.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's no access to other properties other than to the retail center to the south.
Correct.
All right, very good. Okay, at this time, it looks like we have a few people here to speak on this matter. I think probably I've got quite a few. I do recognize Mr. Massoud, so I thought I might start with you since you've been communicating with staff and council. So give them to council, our city clerk. There's a lot of people here tonight.
I will try to be brief.
Yep, thank you, sir.
First, I want to say thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council for listening to us. I am the owner and manager of Summit East Plaza Apartments here in Lee Summit. It's been there 50 years, and I've been a part of it for the last 38 years. I am in opposition to this plan. For the first part, I'm going to talk about the notification process. We are supposed to be notified about the neighborhood meeting back in May of 2023. We got no notifications of that. The Planning Commission meeting, 2023, no notifications of that. City Council meeting in May 7th of 2024, no notifications. And what you'll see in front of you there are the signed affidavits of service. On those dates, you will see a attached mailing list from the website on there. And after that, you will see the only certified mails that has come out, certified receipts from the, I wasn't able to get this from the city website, but one of the city staffers gave it to me. And you will see that the address on the receipt is not the address on the mailing list. And they were sent two of them to that address in Midtown, some 13 blocks from their office, and none of them to the address here in Lee Summit, which you can see from the pad site. Now, these notifications would have let people been able to see this plan and know what it was and give their input into the plan, but instead they have gotten none. So However, that got sent to the wrong address and didn't get there. I have an issue with it. There was an issue with signage. The original sign went up and it got, I don't know, I never saw it. I don't know if I can use this to show how I work this, but I've got the second sign. They went up and within a week it was, thanks sir, appreciate it. Second sign went up within a week, it was knocked down. City did come out and put it up again. This is what the signage looks like now. It is somewhere in the weeds, but you can see the property owner sign, but you cannot see the zoning sign. So I don't think the signage was adequate. And as far as relying on getting your notifications through the newspaper, well, that's the last millennia, and the applicant did not go through the process of notifying us and the policies and procedures of the city of Lee Summit. So for that part, I'm objection to it. The applicant did mention the landfill. This was a small piece of land. It was dumped on with rock and made to be a larger pad site so that they could build something on it. It was not permitted. It was not engineered. There was, and this is the first I've heard of a test. I saw the water runoff engineering reports, but I've not seen a compaction study. So I don't know what's going to happen with that 60 feet of rock that's up there. Does that mean I can't go on with any more of our points?
No. What I'm going to do here, yes, everybody gets 3 minutes, but I think you represent a lot of people tonight, so therefore I'm going to let you go. I'm not going to give everybody more than 3 minutes, but I am definitely going to give you 3 minutes. So please, or more than 3 minutes. So please continue.
I'm almost done, and I'm going to try not to repeat what I think they're going to say. You know, they say that they can put they're going to put the oil change up there, but once you do change the zoning, there's no limit on what they can do. It can do any fast food restaurant or an all-night place they want to. They can come in and do it, and there's a number of legal ways to do this. So I'm concerned about changing the zoning, and then just saying it's for the oil change. I don't know that it's going to be that way. The strip center next to it originally was a car care mall. That didn't work out as well, and it became a pool hall and had bikers and bottled beers and throwing around and stuff. So you can say it's never going to change. It's always going to be there, but you can't actually guarantee it, so it's a concern. We do have other stuff in the area, other places to get the automotive stuff changed, but what we don't have is very much affordable housing in Lee Summit. These people need a nice place to live, and I'd like to encourage you to vote no against to help them maintain a nice place to live so they can be there and service our community and help all of us survive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. There wasn't a particular order. Obviously, everybody's here to speak, but I did see, would you like Michael to speak next since he has similar last name? I thought he might be a good one to go next.
It is a family thing.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council members. I'm Michael Massoud, property manager of the Summit East Plaza Apartments to the east of the proposed plot. I'm here more to talk about just resident health. My job is to keep them as happy and safe and at peace as I can. I appreciate a lot of the noise dampening things that we went over, but I'm just concerned that nobody at my office, nobody at the owner's office, and it's, to my knowledge, no residents got any sort of notification or anything they could voice their opinion on having just new stuff built hundreds of feet from where they lay their head down. And I want them to have a nice place to eat, sleep, be at peace, and, work too. But, so I'm in opposition of the way it was handled, and then just trying to keep some peace for my residents, that's all. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay. I can just choose who goes next, or if somebody wants to come up or whatever, but here's Mr. Theron Denson, I think. sorry. If it's Theron or Theron, I apologize. Theron.
Odd parents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I am a resident of Summit East Plaza and actually just feet from where this proposed project is set to take place. There are some businesses over there already that literally you can hear early in the morning or late at night. I'm a singer, entertainer, so I tend to be a late night guy, but early in the morning I am not. And so the idea of something coming in that we weren't accurately or adequately notified about that could add to that noise pollution I'm in opposition to, and I would like you to vote no and hope you'll consider my opinion. And thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Okay, Mr. Thomas Zamar.
Good evening, and thank you for the ability to speak to you tonight. I want to thank you all for your service. I have a little experience in city government, served on the TIF Commission for many years, was on the school board for many years. I lived at Summit East Plaza for a while as well. My biggest concern is what this city has done. I haven't seen any of the studies on it in terms of the water runoff. If none of you have been back to Summit East Plaza apartments when it's raining, the creek back there is well out of its bounds. We're talking 10, 15 foot up the bank. I don't know what the water retention plan is for this particular project, but that's what concerns me about this. When you build a concrete pad, as you all know, you're taking away from that, and it changes that water retention level completely. And where that sits up on an elevated elevation that it's at, Summit East Plaza is about the level of it, but Summit East Plaza also moves down into the lower levels down there towards Independence Avenue. And I've seen that creek out of its bounds many times. I'd love to see what the city has to say, or the proposal from the developer is about what they intend to do to keep those residents safe. There's walls there already from that creek that have fallen, rocks that have fallen from previous additions that have been made that run across the south border of the property at the intersection of Independence and 2nd Street. Those walls have been crumbling for some time. Lester Massoud has had to add his own rocks along his own property line. That creek has expanded out of its bounds so many times. So that's my biggest concern, is for the safety of the residents there and for that water retention problem. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. I have Ms. Kathy Boas, or Bose.
Mayor and City Council, my name is Kathy Boas. I'm a resident at Plaza East Summit Apartments. I oppose this project. There's my concern about the rezoning to a business. I think somebody previously mentioned it doesn't have to be an oil change, it could change. We're also only 300 feet from that location. So if it were to be rezoned and another type of business would go in there, that could increase the noise, the traffic that we see. So my concern is back to what the gentleman was saying, even about the water, the drainage, and he's right about the creek when it rains at Summit East Apartment. So my request is that respectfully deny the project, and I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I have Michael Nelson.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank you, Mayor and City Councilmen and women, for giving me the opportunity to speak. I also am opposed to this rezoning, and at the risk of sounding like a broken record, it's for the same reasons that have been stated here before. The fact that we were not told, we didn't get to have any input on it until just now, is of great concern to me, as well as the creek. I've been at Summit East for a year and a half now, a little over actually. I have seen that creek when it rains, and it can get very high and very out of control. So I am concerned about the stability of the ground around, and if something were to happen, if we were to have like a collapse or something, that affects us that live there, as well as the noise idea. We've got plenty of noise already. The last thing we need right now is for another kind of business other than an oil change to come in and then just add to the noise. So I'm encouraging the city council to vote no on the rezoning. That's really all I have, and I'd like to thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Okay. Lisa Baldwin.
Hi, Lisa Baldwin. I live at Summit East as well. I'm also opposed to the project. In the staff report, it says the proposed use is consistent and compatible with uses in the CP2 zoned areas in the immediate area. I disagree. I think the majority of the zoning that's on the east side of 291 is zoned commercial, but the opposite side is zoned residential. And I feel like this proposed project would be better suited in a location that's already zoned CP2 rather than rezoning an area that is primarily residential. The comprehensive plan section of the staff report says that the proposed project meets the goals, objectives, and policies, and I disagree with that. The proposed project does not diversify the Lee Summit economy when there are already oil change service companies within that area, within a mile, including a Valvoline instant oil change. I don't see why we need 4 oil change places within a mile. The project does not plan or provide for purposeful growth and revitalization, since there are so many oil change companies in that area. Revitalization can happen with the current zoning, just in a different way. One of the comprehensive plan principles is to ensure that there is a transition in the land use patterns and intensify the uses to make sure that they're compatible and complementary in order to maintain the community character. I feel like the community character isn't being maintained by adding another oil change place and rezoning this to commercial use. I feel pressure with the timer. The staff report states that this proposed project would provide that transition and buffer the high-intensity use of noise from 291, but I feel like the mature trees do that well enough without adding an oil change business there. Let's see. Under adverse impacts, it states the proposed development will not detrimentally impact the surrounding area. I feel like this use is within 300 feet of nearby properties, and those properties would be affected by more cars, vehicle noise, added light pollution, increased exhaust, noise pollution from tools used during oil changes, possible effects from stormwater runoff with drains getting clogged or ditches getting flooded. And I feel like there's a better use for the property without having to rezone it to allow a use that already exists in the area. There's something better suited to be adjacent to residential properties. And like other people have said, you rezone it and it's not just this company that can go there. I feel like if it's rezoned, something that is bigger or louder or taller can go there. So I'm opposed to it.
Thank you. I don't see any other tickets, but if you have something to say about the Take Oil 5 change, there's other people on, so not right now, Ms. Vollenwater. So if you would like to come forward and speak, it's okay to. I would like you to check in before you leave with the city clerk, if you could just put your name on one of those sheets. But please come forward if you'd like to also speak. I'll make sure I get back to you.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Shepherd Brimminger. I live at 822 Northeast Orchard, which is where the vegetation is that we're in discussion in the rezoning. Our house, part of that property butts up to the zoning area, and our concern is taking out, like he said, they weren't going to take out the trees because of topography and everything, but with that, I'm not sure why that area is being zoned commercially, because that would drop the value of our house if any of those trees at some point in the future do get taken down, because there's nothing written in it saying that those trees can't be removed. And the creek also runs through our property, and I can confirm that there is a lot of flooding. So, and we don't want to have additional businesses backing up to our house, sorry. So we want to say, please vote no, so we don't lose that.
Thank you. Did you get her information?
My full name,
Yes, please.
Stephen Lee Cranmer is my current name.
Thank you.
And thank you for letting me speak. And I'll have to fill out one of those paperworks.
Just make sure she has your name spelled,
Okay.
last name spelled correctly, yeah.
Okay, C-R-A-N as in no, M as in mother, E-R.
C-R-A-N as in no, M as in mother, and then what?
E-R.
E-R, okay. Got it.
My vote is no, but my concern is that if they used the current parking lot and they passed it and they used the current parking lot where the businesses are now, that would be a major complication, because that would be a traffic jam the way they currently have it now. And you have a concrete thing outside those businesses that people always take an illegal left turn there because they have to go around that concrete medium to take a left. And that was my major thing, that the parking thing, if they use that same parking lot the way it is now, that would be a complication for that business.
Is the
but
concrete
my
thing in the
vote's no.
parking lot?
Huh?
Is the concrete barrier in the parking lot?
No, I meant for that commercial where, how it's, if they don't rechange that parking thing on an exit, that it would be like an illegal left turn if everybody left that parking lot.
Okay. Very good.
But my vote was no on that.
Thank you. I thought I saw maybe somebody else over here, maybe? Yes, would she like to speak?
My name is Janine Michaels, and my comment is only going to be about 3 seconds. Someone previously said that Take 5 is a much-needed service. We don't know why, because there's an automotive store right next door to that, and they already mentioned just a couple blocks away is Valvoline. So I don't see that it's much needed, but the main concern is all the noise that we already get from there. And for people who work from home, it's a real disturbance, and I just think it would add to it. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your time.
Okay. I was looking for any kind of waive or anything, otherwise I'm going to go to some more questions from council, because you've created some questions. Yes, Ms. Vollenwater.
On the preliminary development plan, I did not see it signed and sealed and the date. I also would like to see the table of revisions. You can say that that's not needed, but the problem begins with what I've experienced. People who work at the city will take that document because it has no watermark, and maybe it has written somewhere in a tiny corner not to be used because it's incomplete. But the way the city cuts things out and takes the seals off, or there are no seals on the document, I have a concern. So when those preliminary development plans are put up on this screen, I don't understand why, is it Shannon McGuire, why he couldn't show the whole thing with the seal, with the revisions, and then go to another PowerPoint slide and show the blown up piece. learn how to protect the public. Those seals are there for a reason, and it is to protect the public's welfare.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to, is there anybody else? With that, I'm going to open it back, or put it back to council members with questions. Councilmember Shields, I can let you go first, or I can try to tell staff some things that they need to come up and address. Or do you got some notes on that? Yeah, go right ahead, please, Councilmember Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had a couple of questions kind of based on some of the comments that were made. As far as the noise level, do we know kind of what the expected noise that would be experienced by the neighboring residential properties would be based on the distance and the type of business?
So I would, let me pull this up here real quick. So what I've done here is I've taken the site plan and overlaid it on an aerial so you can see kind of how it would lay out in relation to the existing structures out there. So the proposed facility is about 285 feet away from the closest corner of the apartment building and 230 feet away from the closest residential to the west there. The existing automotive care center is about 80 feet, so it's going to be significantly less than what's currently out there. A decibel, they're reading, I don't have an exact decibel reading, but they are going to be subject to all the same noise ordinances as any other business within the community.
Don't have like, sometimes you guys will put up like the chart that shows here's what the expected decibels are at this range.
I do not on this one.
Okay, but this seems like, would it be a business that generates significant noise? Like, we've had some come through that are things like car washes with central vacuums and stuff that can generate a good amount of noise. It sounds like this isn't like that, but is that your understanding?
No, ma'am. There's no external pumps like you see at a car wash. Given the minor type of work that they're doing here is going to be less, so there's no oil or there's no tire changes, so you're not going to have that loud impact. You're going to have a socket and a wrench to remove that that drain plug. So that's typically done with a hand tool.
And then there were some kind of general comments, I think, about the kind of business, whether it fits in the area. Can you talk just briefly about what the businesses to the south are currently, just to get a feel for that?
Currently, we have that major automotive repair right there on the end cap. They're allowed to do all types of automotive repair, from major automotive repair, engine swaps, transmission, brake relinings, the whole gamut there. To the south, we have some general retail stores. There's a lumber liquidators, or I think they're called LL now, but some general retail and some other types uses is there well. And then to the south is the new Chase Bank.
Helpful as well. And then there was some concern about the notice process. Can you just speak briefly to what that process looks like? And I know this has gotten continued to try to make sure that there was adequate time to make sure there was notice to everyone. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
I'll defer that to the director, Josh Johnson.
Hi, Joshua Johnson, Director of Development Services. Councilmember Shields, did you want me to go through the UDO requirements for notice, or what occurred with this particular application?
Maybe just kind of a brief overview of both, of what the requirement is and how that was met, or why that got continued to renotice.
So I'll start off by saying state law requires one public hearing and a newspaper notification. The City of Lee Summit goes beyond those requirements. We require 2 public hearings. Both of those are advertised in a newspaper of daily circulation. We post the site, and notices are provided to owners within 300 feet. Now, with this application, I've got a brief timeline here. Back in October, the application was advertised on October 7th. The site was posted on October 6th, and notices were mailed out on October 5th. Now, at that time, it wasn't a certified mail process. The applicant at that time only did an affidavit, and we accepted that. And then a public hearing was held at the Planning Commission after that process was followed. Now, after that, there was supposed to be a public hearing at council back in November, on the 21st. That same process was followed, and again, back then, we didn't require certified mail. Now, that did change in between those two public hearings. Now, originally, as I mentioned, that original second public hearing was set for November 21st. At that time, before that occurred, the applicant said, hey, we want to continue this indefinitely. Now, in that case, we will redo noticing. And so that was occurred, and that was set to happen for a May 7th public hearing. At that time, we were notified that someone had changed their address, and that wasn't reflected in Jackson County records. So at that time, we reached out to the applicant and said, hey, we've got this issue. Would you be okay deferring to May 21st? And that's what was done. That address was corrected, and mailed notices occurred, and our other processes. And then that owner at that address is here tonight and has testified. So that's a brief rundown of what has occurred at this point.
And just as for clarity, the certified mail process, that's just a new process the city has implemented just to make sure that we're able to track better where the notices are sent and actually have a receipt showing here's where it went and who signed for it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that changed address I mentioned, we received the receipt from that address.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. It seems like a lot was done to try to make sure, and it seems to have worked in that we have a good number of members of the public here that did get notice of this and were able to attend. So, oh, and then one other question, you mentioned that notice goes to owners, but not necessarily to tenants. Is that under
Not
state
residents.
statute?
That's not based on state statute.
Just is it
state-
city policy? Because the statute doesn't require notice at all. It just requires or not mailed notice, just the newspaper notice, right?
That's correct.
Okay, but we go above and beyond and send it to the owner. And is that because we can find the record of the owner in the tax records, but we don't necessarily have any way to know who all the tenants are?
Yeah, that's correct. And then also, that was a decision when we made those changes to code. That is something we could look at integrating into the code and work that through like CEDC or some other process.
I don't think there needs to be a change. I just wanted everyone to understand like what the process is and what the expectations are, and having that posted notice also gives people in the area a chance, like the signs on the property, gives everyone in the area a chance to know what's going on as well, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. I think those are all my questions, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Thanks, Mayor. So, not sure if Mr. McGuire, this question might be for you or the owner. So there was some comments made about concerns regarding the geotechnical, credibility of the site, and then how that affects water runoff and water retention. Can someone address that?
Yeah, so if you want to, here, it's kind of, we had a detention pond right here, as well as they're also proposing some underground detention in the parking lot as well. So that was going to capture all that, the runoff from that impervious area. So as part of the review process, a geotechnical report was required, has been submitted and was reviewed through development engineering, and it does meet all the UDO requirements to accommodate the construction of this building.
I know there's concerns about the creek nearby that, with heavy rains, it fills up pretty fast. So it sounds like the water can be contained on this site. And then geotechnical should cover any kind of potential erosion down the road.
Correct.
Right, theoretically.
Yes, sir.
So, and staff feels comfortable,
Yes, sir.
satisfied.
Yep, and there will be an additional review during the final development plan process as well to ensure that we are meeting all UDO requirements and that it is constructed in compliance with all requirements of the design and construction manual, as well as the UDO.
Thank you, appreciate that. That's all I have for now, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions? Since you're on that topic, Mr. McGuire, so as you look at that plan, which way does the land, you're saying that the detention pond's in front and then the parking lot in front's going to be permeable, and so are you saying that the obviously, you're going to capture water on site, but which way does it drain right now?
So currently, it's going to drain kind of to that northeast way and eventually go underneath 291 into that large pond next to Hy-Vee.
Without all these, without this plan, I mean, is that the way
Correct.
it does?
That's the way it goes now, and it'll
Okay.
continue to go that way.
So that's why the detention pond is where it is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So basically, the drainage coming off this is below that tree line right there, towards that creek, because it drops so heavily right there. It drops 28 feet.
This tree line area here is lower than the pad site.
Yeah.
This is going to go this way
Yep.
and follow.
So it's kind of like a ridge. The high point is near where that fence is or right where the building is? Okay. What about the couple of questions that came through that we haven't addressed? The size of the building is pretty small, 1,400 square feet. Expanding this building at a later date, can you describe the process that would happen and how that may come back through? Because there's not a lot you could do with this property at a later date commercially. So what if you had to expand on this site?
So this particular site is very limited by the site constraints and the topography of it. Like I said, the developable area is kind of that pad site. So you run into site limitations based on if you start to expand the building, now you're expanding the requirement for parking lot, and you don't have a lot of area to expand that parking lot there. The UDO does also establish criteria for a substantial change in an approved preliminary development plan. So if this particular property were to be rezoned tonight and the project not be constructed, if someone wanted to come in and do a different project, a fast food or some kind of restaurant, that would be considered a substantial change because we're altering significantly the use and the intensity of the property as well as the traffic flow of the property. So they would have to come back before you through a separate preliminary development plan approval process to seek new approval.
What is the likelihood that staff would recommend fast food, given this is a right in, right out? I mean, the traffic.
Very, very slim,
Okay.
given we've had.
I mean, I can't imagine council approving it, but I just want to know what staff's going to say.
So we've reviewed, this has been a long undeveloped property. We've had multiple people come to the city and discuss different things. Dunkin' Donuts was one that was looking at this site. Dunkin' Donuts also looking at the Chase Bank site. Given the site constraints and the traffic flow, neither one of those were feasible, so they never came forward. So to put a drive-through facility or a high generating traffic type facility or use here, it just wouldn't fit and wouldn't be the appropriate site, and so staff would not support that.
Okay. And then one more thing on that, comp plan wise, obviously this has never been developed, so this zoning was put in place quite some time ago. And then on the comp plan, does this show it as the comprehensive plan as in future uses that the city has?
So the future comp use plan shows it as the downtown activity center, which is a broad use category that allows quite a bit of different stuff there. Given the proximity to 291, the current residential zoning is probably not realistic. No one was really probably going to want to build a house right up to 291. So, 291 is characterized by kind of that linear strip commercial along 291 with that more residential behind it. So it's following the same development patterns that's currently out there.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to go to the next stage of this, which is, does the applicant care to make any further comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to get back up here and state that I appreciate everybody who showed up tonight and had their voices heard by the council. I understand their concerns, and I think what I am trying to convey is that we are a low-impact use. I mean, everybody hears oil change and, oh my gosh, but there's, like I said, it's going to be very limited, just oil change. There will be no lifts. There's not going to be those high-impact wrenches that you hear next door. And I do respect the fact that there's a significant waterway to the north. And so making sure that we're detaining that flow to the northeast, you know, should alleviate stuff to the southwest here. And so I'm hopeful that you approve this tonight. We'd look forward to being part of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing no further testimony, I'm closing the public hearing and reopening the regular session. Is there any council discussion on this application? Councilmember Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the presentation and the members of the public who came to speak tonight. I think they raised good points that we had a chance to discuss more fully, so that's always good to make sure that we fully vet these applications. I would support this. It abuts 291. I can't imagine what would go there other than commercial. It's a use very much in keeping with the local area, especially given there's another car care center just directly abutting it. I think it seems like staff has been very thorough and transparent in making sure that the public had a chance to weigh in on this. And they've addressed concerns about drainage and noise, and I can't imagine a place in Lee Summit that would make more sense to put a use like this. It's on a commercial corridor. It's next to similar uses. It's going to have a nice big stream buffer between it and the residential to help really limit that impact. So I think it's a use that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Council comments. I'll just commend the residents and citizens and Mr. Massoud. You guys were super organized and very professional. It's not always that way in here, and I can assure you that you get heard much more clearly by council when you come in and are well-spoken and civil the way everyone was tonight. So I very much appreciate that, so thank you all. And thank you all for taking the time to come in and testify. Back to the agenda. I'm not seeing any further questions or comments from council, so I'm going to ask Councilmember DeMoro to please read Bill number 24-086.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to advance the second reading Bill number 24-086, an ordinance approving rezoning from District RP2 to District CP2 and a preliminary development plan for Take 5 oil change on approximately 1.73 acres of land located at 400 Northeast M291 Highway, all in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 33 Unified Development Ordinance of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Lee Summit, Missouri.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-086 by Councilmember DeMoro, seconded by Councilmember Shields. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. Seven of us. Okay, I've got 7 votes. All right, I have 6 votes and 1 recusal. Please record the vote. So it does pass 5-1 with a recusal and an abstention. So because Mia Pryor had to step away to an event. So again, you all did a good job tonight. So I'm sorry it didn't go your way on the vote, but I do appreciate that everybody came in and spoke, so thank you. The next on the agenda is public comments. And I'm going to let Ms. Fick go first.
I'm gonna need this thing. You turn. And then, okay. Okay, first off, I'd like.
Vic, I always, whenever you put it up there, I always want to make sure that we see it the way you want us to see it. So look up there on that screen, if you would. See how it's sideways? Yeah, there we go.
The corner, that's, the left-hand corner is my yard. Facing us is the neighbor behind me. And then if you go up the hill, the neighbor that's dumping all the water into my yard. And I did want to thank Mr. Demaro and Faith Hodges for coming out, and Mr. Elam for walking my yard.
Mind speaking into the microphone so
I'd
we
like to
can hear you
thank them
better?
all for coming out and looking at my yard. And unfortunately, this garden no longer exists. It was washed away. And I'd like to show you this drain in my yard that goes down the middle of my property. Now, that is not a normal drain. And I was told that that's normal drainage. And then I have this problem in the backyard where the water never goes away. And this fungus is called dead man fingers. And it's a really bad sign on your maple tree. It means it's gonna die, and it's already about 20 to 40% dead. And it's called, I think, black root rot. It's from too much water. It's a maple tree, and it's getting too much water. And you can see how it's been dug into. And if you look real close, right here in the center is the light of day. It literally goes through the tree. The tree has dug itself out of the ground. It's all fibrous. And I have two other ones that are also dying in a similar manner. They dig down deep for the clean water because we have actually, Lee Summit has a really high water table. One neighbor on the left side of me has a spring in their yard. I think I might have a spring in the bottom of my yard, but it's still less than 100 feet from where he's dumping the pool water. And this is what that corner looks like now. I just took a big wide shot so you can see how the lay of the land has changed. It used to go back and to this corner, but, okay. And then, oh, I have notes and reminders. Okay, so I was told that the water follows the property drainage. And, oh, this is part, I was told I added soil to the back of my property. I did not add any soil. That is untrue. And I was accused of lying about that garden being mine. And then here's some more codes. And I printed out, I don't know if you want me to read them to you or not, but I said the water flows the drainage plan even to the top of my yard. The water's more than 10 feet from the fence line. The water flows into my yard 20 feet and then flows the fence line down past 5 houses, not into anyone's yard, but into the street. I have not added dirt to the back of my yard. This was my garden. I had gardens all along the side of my house, that went all around the house, all along the fence, all along the hedge, where I had 3 little secret gardens that I called them, all washed away. And we do have plenty of codes that talk about water and the proper disposal of it. Oh, and coincidentally, and this is kind of what made me come today, was then the very next day I had another engineer come into my yard. And his first words were, "Where did all this water come from?" And I'm like, well, my neighbor has a pool. And then he was concerned about all the water running the underground power lines. And then I told him it was a saltwater pool, and he was even more concerned, and he's gonna, like, build a berm where I've been asking the city to build a berm the entire time in the top corner of the yard where the water comes down. And, because it doesn't, that's not the natural flow. It should be behind the utility boxes. So anyways, Evergy could see the water problem. I don't understand why you guys, the city couldn't. I mean, the very next day, they came in, they're just like, where's all that water coming from?
Thank you for coming in. Ms. Fallenweider, you are up.
Teresa Vollenweider, 5201 Northeast Maybrook Road. Another state law, and I believe it's the Public Works Department of Lys Summit, Missouri, that is telling my neighbor, Derek.
We're not going there. We're not going there. You're going to get through your 3 minutes and not call us Lys Summit, okay?
I believe it is the Public Works Department of this town that is telling the neighbor to remove things on my property. There is a state law that says if any person shall cut down, injure, or destroy, or carry away any tree placed or growing for use, shade, and then come on down where it says, or shall dig up, quarry, or carry away any stones, or mineral, gravel, clay, or tear out roots, fruit, plants. That's been done on my property several times. This is the ordinance that showed what was rezoned to residential large lot. There are the signatures. Mayor Baird, Brian Head, Trish Fowler. The documents used, Matthew Schliss's site plan, and Brant Ladwig's survey. Just so that we're clear, the original survey that produced or created the 5261 plat or parcel and separated it from my barn parcel was an original survey, the 1999 original survey. Anything subsequent to that original survey is a retracement. Original, 1999, retracement, Brant Ladwig, retracement, if he did one, which I'm sure he did, Matthew Schlish. I've got the documentation that would indicate that he did a survey. Now, if you want to say that Brant Ladwig's survey was used to determine what was zoned residential lot, large lot, I want you to take note of this right here. Deed east, 332 feet. If you look at the electric line easement, you will see fence east, 332 feet to a point, said point be designated as point A. On the original survey, there it is, 332 feet east. There's point A. This is, Brant Ladwig used the overhead electric line to be the right-of-way, except that he didn't come down here and put point A. That right-of-way line follows that electric line. It actually falls in front of it. It goes, the fence line was north was south of the power poles. And it followed those power poles. So there's your right-of-way line. And that's what's being used. Now, if you look at some of Matthew Schliss's documents, he put that fence line on every one of his documents. He knew. But the problem being, in order to get that 40 feet that the city wanted, he had to put that right-of-way line through the building. Now, how can the city say they've got an easement in someone's building? They didn't want to take the property from this side because it was already determined what that right-of-way line was. It was the electric line easement. So you had to take it from the other side, and so Matthew Schliss showed to make it 40 feet, he had to take some of the building. That's why you say there's 30 feet. There's no 40 feet there.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fallenwetter. $7:30, do you guys want to break? We have 2 more presentations, so let's take a short break, 10 minutes.
Welcome to the Lee Summit Sign Department. We are going to walk you through our process from start to finish. We make signs as needed here. It's not like we just go out into the field and place a speed limit sign here, no parking here. Our traffic engineers, they go through and they'll do field studies. They'll send us down an engineering work order for us to go out, place new signs or remove signs as needed. Coming from the material, our blanks come in and they're just aluminum blanks. We can put our white, our red, our fluorescent yellow, green, whatever. And basically what it looks like is just that there. Throw it up into the roller. And once we got it covered, take it to our work table here, and Tim will cut the corners, cut all the access off to where it's lined up right. As far as the plotter and the software that we use, there's a street name sign there, and he's gonna go ahead and print that out on the plotter so you can see the plotter and how it operates and runs. There's standards for the height, even just on letters on the sign blank. Basically what we have on the computer there is it's pretty much set up to those. And it goes through, it's got a very small but sharp needle that goes through and cuts everything out, letter by letter. Once that's done cutting, our next stage would be bringing it over here. Currently picking out the sign letters right now. We call it weeding or picking or however you want to call it. Next, putting it on the transfer tape. Then after it's taped, we bring it over to the roller. That's where we apply it to the actual sign blank. And we'll roll it through one time just to get the air bubbles out. And the last stage is basically just taking the transfer tape off the front of it. And there's a finished product of the street name sign. We'll take you out to the field and show you our process that we go through. We're gonna go out and follow our sign guys, get something installed for you. This is where we check our underground utilities. Tim, you got AT&T?
AT&T's back here.
Evergy, Google, so we should be good to go. We normally put all of our stuff together out in the field. Then once the base is installed, we'll go ahead and put the post in there. These come up too. Perfect. And that's how we do it. Simple. quick.
Traditionally, we think as police officers, those responding to law enforcement needs within the community. But honestly, we are there to serve our citizens, and our citizens do go into crisis. They do have mental health crises, and we're being called to those scenes on a regular basis. In order to help serve those citizens better, we did initiate the Crisis Intervention Team Program. These are officers that are specially trained to de-escalate crisis situations. Recently, we've brought co-responders onto the scene, licensed qualified mental health professionals housed within our police department, and they respond with those officers directly to those scenes where a crisis is occurring so they can interact with that citizen and get them the help they need right there on that scene.
The co-responders are either a bachelor or master level in a behavioral health related field. They wear plain clothes, they don't carry weapons or anything like that.
I have a police radio that I listen to all day. Listen for, those key words: mental health, behavioral health, crisis.
There's a lot of officers that just call for me. I have my own radio number.
I also have the ability to self-dispatch to them and say 982 is en route.
Officers en route, 914, Armstrong.
So typically I arrive after they've made it safe. I'll make contact and get kind of the rundown, and then I just kind of jump right in.
Like, hey, my name's Allison. I'm a mental health professional. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take you to jail or arrest you.
Sometimes all a person needs is a voice, someone neutral, someone outside that, can listen. I do a lot of safety planning, including family, their support network, who's close to you. If they're home alone, who can come over and hang out with you today? Can we lock away your sharps? Can we put up your meds? Do you need meds? Can we get you over to the urgent care to get you assessed for your medications? Some of them also are like, oh, I'm so glad you came. This made me feel so much better.
Our main goal as co-responders is to, one, get people connected to the services that they need, and also divert from emergency rooms and jails.
And they almost get a different view of the police responding. That lets me know you care and the officers care.
Please, how can we help you?
My husband has...
In 2020, we had 722 mental health related calls for service. 2022, by that time, 1,479. These mental health related calls for service are increasing. How we're responding to that is increasing the number of crisis intervention team officers we have available, as well as the number of co-responders we have available to respond on these calls.
So what I think is important for the community to know about the co-responder program is that we're here, we exist. All you have to do when you call 911 is ask for us. Say, hey, I want a co-responder to respond to this crisis, and we'll go. I was really struggling about 8 years ago on my personal journey with mental health, and I met some amazing social workers and amazing programs that have helped me get to where I am today. I really couldn't see myself doing anything else. We want to help, and that's what we love to do.
So I had a client, we got a call, she had some suicidal ideations, and she really felt that she had nobody. And and getting to know her story and getting to know who comes around and sees you, well then we found a support person and they responded immediately and we made a plan. I called back and checked on her in an hour, and then I checked on her in 2 hours. We were able to get her into the additional services to where she talks to someone every week or more. I just took a person that really just thought they had nobody and nobody would show up for them, and show them you do. And you'll be amazed who is in your corner if you just simply say, I need a little help.
When the person called on the phone, she said that there was a dinosaur walking down her road. Of course, we had to go out and check that out. We get out there, and it was a big African tortoise, probably 60 pounds, walking down the road. When they walk, they really stand up tall, so I could see why she thought it was a dinosaur. I'm Rodney Wagner. I'm the manager of Lee Summit Animal Control. So as you can see, we get all sorts of animals here. You got some guinea pigs off to the side. All the windows up here are animals that are adoptable right now. Every one of these dogs is ready to go and ready for adoption. And the same thing with our cats over here. A lot of cool cats in here now, so this is our 3-acre lot we have out back. This is where we do all the walking of dogs, exercise. We also have a side yard off to the side over there, so we can let them run loose. They can run together, and we have what's called play groups. kind of like having a bunch of kids. Here's our vet room. We have a vet that comes out twice a week. This is our Sally Port where we bring the animals into. This is one of our animal control trucks, and we can hold up to 6 animals. We have a lift on the other side to put big animals in. We actually have temperature gauges in here and in the truck to tell us how hot it is. Once it gets to a certain temperature, we bring all the animals back here immediately. So this actually has traps in it, but we do a lot of wildlife trapping. I mean, a lot. So bats, pot-bellied pigs, horses, cows, emus, a lot of reptiles. We had a citizen one time that had over 200 reptiles in his basement. Caimans and alligators in here that are 4 or 5 feet long. You can't keep those. And people do, and they're surprised when they can't keep them. I'm like, really? You're surprised you can't have an alligator in your house? Our main goal here is public safety and also the safety of the animals. And we have very dedicated people back there, and they definitely stay here for the love of the animals, which also includes getting them adopted out. We'll have about 4,000 impounded animals a year. Probably about close to 2,000 are dogs and cats. The cats and dogs, when they get impounded here, they go on a 5-day hold. And then after the 5 days, if the owner doesn't show up, then we can put them up for adoption. To adopt an animal here is actually really simple. You just come in, look for whatever animal you're looking for, find the right pick. You go to the adoption room up there and see if you get along with them. You spend as much time as you want to in there. From that point on, it's just a matter of making sure they're spay or neutered and all their vaccinations up to par and they're good to go. We have a very high adoption rate because we try everything in our power to get animals adopted out. We have Heart of America, a Humane Society that we do a lot of adoptions through. And then we also have other groups. We have some people that literally will just look all over the country for somewhere for a dog to go. And we sent dogs up into South Dakota, North Dakota, Washington State. So it's actually, it's a huge united effort to get all these animals home.
Tarzan's got lots of energy. Hazel's got a weird meow. Belle, she wants nothing to do with the other cats. She'll kind of get her grumpy face going.
And the good thing about the people here is that they get all their friends to get animals too. All of us have probably the limit of all the animals that we can have at home. You know, they are huge animal lovers. If it was up to the people here, we'd have 15 cats running around in here. We had a citizen one time out there and he was bathing his 2 9-foot-long boa constrictors in the front yard. Apparently I was garnering some attention, and so we went out there and had to have a talk with him about that. Why do I do this job? Oh, dude, I love this job. I grew up on a farm, and taking care of that many animals, you can't help but like animals. This is just like fancy farming. You know, you're just bringing animals in here, taking care of them, and find them homes, and yeah, absolutely animal lover.
I'm Assistant Chief Jim Eden.
And I'm Battalion Chief Ben Hicks.
And today we're at Lee Summit Fire Station 3. Fire Station 3 was part of the 2016 no tax increase general obligation bond for public safety initiatives. The station was built and occupied in August of 2020. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we've not been able to give tours or have an actual ribbon cutting. So we want to invite you in today to give you the opportunity to see what goes on within a Lee Summit Fire Department station.
Let's go take a tour.
This is our admin side of the facility. We use this side mainly for offices. We have a lot of work during the day, whether it's training or doing reports or just generally taking care of the shift that we need to do. At this particular station, Station 3, we do have an assistant chief that works out of here. That person has their own office where they need to manage what's going on throughout the day with the shift and staffing, and as well as running calls out of here. The captain has their own office as well. What the captain does is at this specific station is in charge of both the fire truck that's here as well as the ambulance. And so with all those personnel responsibilities as well as running calls and reports, that's where they work out of. And generally for the rest of the crew, which is somewhere around 5 to 6 individuals, we have rooms to write reports, and we have additional training rooms and other rooms where people can work. Walking into our living area, I think it's important to recognize that we work 48-hour shifts. So in the evenings, after 5 o'clock, after work is done, we may have the opportunity to catch a game or something else as long as we're not running calls. And this gives us the opportunity to do that. When we go into our kitchen, I think this gives you a great reason to know why we go to the grocery store. When you see fire trucks at the grocery store, what we're doing. Also, for 2 days working for 48 hours, we buy all our meals at the grocery store, and then we come in here and cook, just like you guys do at home. So everybody has their own fridge on each shift as well as their own pantry.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're going to bring this meeting back to order, and it is time for presentations. The first presentation for the evening is Jackson County Public Health Community Health Assessment presentation. And Ray, how do you say your last name?
Is Delugalecki, but Ray D is sufficient if you, or Ray. There's not many Rays around here, so.
Delugalecki.
Delugalecki, yeah, that's
Delugalecki.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
The Assistant Director of Public Health.
Yes. All right, thank you very much. It's a privilege to really be before you today and talk a little bit about community health. I'll get your full screen. Oh, thank you. There you go. Wonderful. I appreciate it. So today I'm briefly going to talk about our community health assessment. I had the privilege of talking to the Lee Summit Wellness Commission, absolutely a fantastic group of city residents and professionals who asked a lot of fantastic questions about the data, and we spent a lot of time going through the data. So this is going to be a very abridged presentation in relation to this massive encyclopedia of information related to health that is available to you. So to kind of get into this, Jackson County Public Health, our mission as an organization is really to create opportunities for residents to attain good health through a wide range of different services, programs, and interventions. As a public health agency, we serve roughly 280,000 people in Jackson County, and our service area is defined as Eastern Jackson County, which basically excludes everything in the city limits of Kansas City and Independence. Those are all communities that we serve as an agency, and that's going to be the focus of this assessment that I'm briefly going to touch on tonight. If there's a central thesis of this presentation, it's really that health is complex, right? Shocking. It's not really, you don't need any special degree to understand that there's a lot of factors that drive the health and well-being of our community. But one of the easiest factors and data points to look at as it pertains to starting this journey of health and really identifying wellness is to look at a study or a factor, an indicator called life expectancy. And so what we can ascertain from life expectancy is a calculation that we can run at a localized geography. Usually the zip code is about the lowest level we can get without using 10 plus years of data. But what we can see from the zip code level is there are differences in life expectancy. There are differences in the amount of years an individual or a population would be expected to live. And those differences are based on opportunities. They lead to differences in health, they lead to differences in quality of life, and they lead to differences in lifespan. And so we see 64086, which is in Lee Summit, obviously, and 64054, there's a 13-year difference in life expectancy as it pertains to those populations and how long they're expected to live. In Lee Summit, the disparity is much smaller than we see across Jackson County. And if we included Kansas City In Independence, the disparity grows to 23, 24 years in regards to disparities. But if we look just at Lee Summit, the average life expectancy is between 80 and 83 years. And it's just 64063, that very particular zip code, that we see that disparity occurring, where there's a 3-year difference in regards to how long people are living in that particular zip code as it pertains to life expectancy. So, as I mentioned, with health being complex, it's rarely driven by a singular factor. If we look at life expectancy, there's been very few instances in our history that can be traced back to individual factors. A large number of people dying within a short period of time usually drives life expectancy down, obviously. And so the opioid crisis is one of those crises that has driven down life expectancy across the country. COVID-19 also drove down life expectancy across the country. But what's most important is the understanding that there's a variety of factors that occur within a person's life that have the ability to influence life expectancy for the good or for the bad. And so these are hypothetical examples, but they're important as we talk about community health overall and trying to understand what drives health of a population. And so one of the ways that we do that as a health department, we have to try to understand the complexities so that we can, again, try to make informed decisions about how we invest in programs, services, resources, all of those things, is through this health assessment process. And so our health assessment is predicated on 3 primary prongs. The first is a comprehensive household survey, where we survey a randomized portion of households across eastern Jackson County, ask them all types of questions associated with their health, their behaviors, how they feel about certain policies and perspectives associated with choices that they make in their lives. We fill in the gaps with focus groups, so we understand that surveys, naturally, any survey that you do, you're going to miss populations. And so it's absolutely imperative that you identify gaps in surveys and you fill those gaps with qualitative research as much as you possibly can. And so that's where the in-person discussions happen with very specific groups of the population who are missed. And then one of the most comprehensive assessments of data that we conduct every 5 years. We look at over 200 different indicators. We have some primary research that we incorporate into the assessment itself. It's just a big collection of data and information. And tonight I'm going to very, very, very lightly skim the surface of what came out of this assessment as far as priority areas. What did the community feel are priority areas that we need to investigate further? What did our organizational partners feel like we needed to prioritize as a community? And where do we go from there? And so the whole thesis of what we're going to talk about is the assessment. We're going to skim the data, and we're going to talk a little bit about what the next steps look like as far as action towards the end. So the health assessment itself, there's the old adage, if you prioritize everything, you prioritize nothing. And it's the same thing with community health. These are the topics that are contained within a community health assessment process. It's a very massive assessment that we had to pare down just based on the size. And so we asked ourselves, how do you focus? How do you prioritize? You have to be able to prioritize so that you can focus in and provide some clarity on some of these issues and identify opportunities for intervention. And so how we did that is really starting by asking our community. Last summer, we invited over 40 organizations. We had representation from Lee Summit present. We had community members present. They reviewed a massive amount of information, a massive amount of data. They provided community context associated with the outcomes that we saw. And they participated in a process by which we could rank, so to speak, different issues that they felt were important to them. They felt were impactful enough to community health that they demanded us to prioritize them and to focus on them. And so the priority areas, as massive as they are, that came from this process are mental health and well-being and economic stability. These are things that rose to the top through the data that they reviewed, and through the data that I'm going to share with you, just again, very briefly, I hope that you'll see why some of these things were chosen as priority areas or opportunities for us, not just as a health department, but as a community to make strategic investments on for change potentially. So I'm going to start with economic stability. And again, economic stability is a massive topic area. It's not something that I could spend days talking about economic stability. There's experts in this room that could talk exclusively about economic stability. But these are some of the data points that rose to the top for community members. These are things that were impactful to them, so much so that they lifted them up through our process. And all of this data is going to be Eastern Jackson County on this slide, but we're going to get into Lee Summit specific data in regards to resident perspectives here in the next few slides. So 1 in 5 residents, households reported having to choose between buying food and paying other bills, according to our survey. 1 in 10 were concerned about losing their housing in the very near future, and 1 in 10 did not feel safe walking in their neighborhood for one reason or another. It could be crime, could be dogs, could be infrastructure, whole host of different reasons. And so from there, we looked a little bit deeper at the perspectives of residents. We all have to make choices. Everyone in here has to make choices, whether it be financially or how we're going to live our lives. But we also learned that there are portions of our population, and this is Lee Summit data specifically, who are making choices that had the potential to impact their lives down the road, whether that be through 13% of Lee Summit residents being worried that their household would run out of food, 14% had to choose between buying groceries and paying other bills, 28% avoided seeking medical care due to medical bills. We actually had a lot of follow-up and focus groups on that one, with several families actually reporting driving to ERs with a sick kid or a sick family member and waiting in the parking lot to see how that would progress rather than going in and risking the financial constraint that would come with a medical bill. 22% avoided filling a prescription due to the cost. And so all of these things, when we look at, again, a continuation into economic stability, it naturally brings us to talking about poverty. And one of the things that we realized, and again, from this last slide, was that poverty is not a binary line. It doesn't mean that if you're in poverty, you are suffering, and if you're not in poverty, you're not suffering, you're not experiencing any hardship. And we didn't see that necessarily. We didn't see the poverty rate align with the perspectives of citizens in relation to challenge. And so what I want to lift up just briefly from this slide, the MIT living wage calculator puts out estimates every few years in regards to how much income a family would need to make in order to meet ends meet, basically. Child care, transportation, health care, all of those things. And so the estimate of MIT for a family of 4 living in this area, they'd need to make about $95,000 to afford those basic expenses. Now, thankfully, of all the cities in Eastern Jackson County, Lee Summit has amongst the highest in regards to median household income, which is great. But there's also a portion of the city, again, this is a median household income, that are not necessarily able to make ends meet, so to speak. And so they're having to make choices in their lives that have the potential to impact them long term. And this resonated with a lot of our community members and organizations as it pertains to this being a priority issue. This is just a slide, again, showing the gap as far as what is considered the poverty rate or poverty level for a family of 4 at $26,000. Again, and the gap between what a family needs in order to meet ends meet. But what resonated as well when we're talking about economic stability was the shared challenges that exist across Eastern Jackson County communities. There's not a singular community that is exempt from challenges associated with economic stability. And these rates here are specific to poverty, and every community, and we know this, right? This is intuitive. Every community has challenges and opportunities to address economic stability, which again resonated with community members and organizations as a priority opportunity area. Another major factor of economic stability, and again, this could be its own topic by itself, is housing. So for many families, and we all know this fact as well, homeownership is really a key opportunity to build wealth and really control their monthly housing expenses to a certain extent. And so we know 76% of Lee Summit residents own their own home, which is higher than Eastern Jackson County's rate overall. But there are clear racial and ethnic disparities in regards to home ownership that exist and persist across Eastern Jackson County. It's not a novel phenomenon for any community. These are all standard things that exist and persist in every one of our communities. But even owning one's own home doesn't necessarily guarantee financial security. And so in Lee Summit, 16% of homeowners right now are considered to be cost burdened, meaning that they spend more than 30% of their income, their gross income, on housing costs. And that rate is nearly triple amongst renters. It's at 46% of renters in Lee Summit specifically are cost burden at this time. And again, this is a rate that is very similar across all of Eastern Jackson County. It's not necessarily novel to Lee Summit. When residents do find affordable housing, it isn't always necessarily safe or guaranteed long term. And some of our residents are having to choose between potentially living in a neighborhood with environmental or safety hazards or deal with problems within their own homes, such as lead paint or other issues that they don't have the funds to fix, as a matter of staying in communities that they love, staying in place where their families can grow. And so when we asked residents about concerns with their current housing, Lee Summit residents in particular, and this is a Lee Summit resident data point, identified 3 primary issues that they faced above all else, and that was mold or mildew growth, peeling or chipping paint, and no or non-functioning carbon monoxide detectors. And so in this next, again, in the interest of brevity and moving forward, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about mental health and how it impacts our residents' lives overall. And again, just as with economic stability, mental health is incredibly complex. There's a whole host of factors that go into mental health. But these were some of the data points that resonated with our community organizations and community members, specifically the number of respondents experiencing at least one day or one poor mental health day in the past month. And if we look specifically at Lee Summit data in particular, 64% of respondents of households had at least one poor mental health day in the last month. 7% of our respondents had 11 or more poor mental health days in the last month. And so as we look at and we transition slightly to talking a little bit about coping, substance use is really one type of coping behavior that can both lead to and result from poor mental health overall. As I mentioned before, opioid use is a rising public health crisis across the United States and even in this state. With opioid overdose deaths doubling in Eastern Jackson County between 2018 and 2021. But what I will say is we're missing a significant portion of data, and we've heard this from our law enforcement partners substantially. As they're administering naloxone to save people's lives, we have no mechanism by which we can capture that individual in any of our data if they refuse to go to the hospital. If they refuse treatment and they go about their way, we don't necessarily from an Eastern Jackson County perspective have an opportunity to capture that and to capture the full extent of the crisis. And that's something that's important that we should lift up in talking about this. And so when someone is facing addiction, depression, or any other mental health condition, getting help can be difficult in Eastern Jackson County. The lack of healthcare services, the local availability of providers, long wait times, financial difficulties, as we mentioned before, can all be barriers to treatment overall. And with mental health, the delay of care can cause those conditions to become more severe. And so suicide-related visits to emergency rooms in Eastern Jackson County increased by 74% between 2018 and 2022, and it continues to increase to this day. This is a trend that we continue to see increasing. 24% of those visits were from residents in Lee Summit, and in 2020 alone, 1/3 of individuals making a suicide-related ER visit in Eastern Jackson County were young people between the ages of 10 and 19. And so these are just some of the ways, some data points that we're talking about in regards to how mental health and economic stability impact residents overall. But I want to shift gears ever so slightly to talk about voices and perspectives that people shared in regards to this survey. We asked residents their perspectives on policy categories. We didn't ask their perspectives on specific legislation or specific policies. We were curious about how residents felt about certain policy categories. And some of these things Lee Summit is leading the way in, right? Parks and recreation, the availability of parks. That's something that Lee Summit is above and beyond. But we also asked just their perspectives in regards to support. And so the policies with the most amount of support specific to to Lee Summit, related to economic stability, improved transportation, safety and rental housing, affordable education, and a safe and clean built environment overall. We also asked resident satisfaction on a number of factors, and I'm pleased to share that Lee Summit residents responded most favorably out of all of the communities that we surveyed. Over 91% of Lee Summit respondents were satisfied with their overall quality of life, and 88% thought it was a safe place to live and raise children. But only just over half, of respondents said that they found enough support in Lee Summit during times of crisis, and 68% were satisfied with their housing choices and the availability of health and social services as opportunity areas. Furthermore, we asked residents to define strengths of their community and things that they were concerned about. And so Lee Summit residents identified concerns with areas like distracted driving, affordable housing options, and access to public transit, amongst a whole host of others there that you can see on the list. But the strengths are there as assets to take advantage of in regards to how we move forward with a good place to raise kids, a healthy environment, a walkable community, access to nutritious food, and high-quality public schools were all things that were identified by residents. So the question is, what's next? What do you do with all of this data? It's not enough to just talk about challenges and opportunities. We have to move forward. And so now that the assessment phase has been completed, our next step is to move towards action. How do we make meaningful change in some of these areas? One of the ways that we're doing this is retooling our structure and our approach. And we're doing that through support. And you'll see maybe some Lee Summit faces in this picture. I know it's hard to see. Dr. Solansky, Dr. Kramer, these are all folks who have joined this initiative. But this lab, this group, so to speak, is called INCLAB. And one of the functions of this group is to serve as really a container for organizations, for subject matter experts and community members to dig into these two issues that I talked about tonight more extensively than we've ever done in this community. These two issues are called wicked challenges. They exist and persist oftentimes despite our investment, despite our ability to program at them. They continue to change and evolve and grow and morph. And they're not going to be solved by an individual organization or entity alone. They require dynamic collaboration across organizations and entities to enact some semblance of change, to move the needle, so to speak. And so it requires us to move from this traditional way where organizations act alone. They act within their service delivery line, their strategic plan. They act on their own organizational priorities, and consider and move to a consideration for how the work being done in a bubble affects the larger picture overall. How are we going to move from transactional change, which transactional is really focused on transacting with populations who are harmed by a certain system or structure. We provide them with a program, we provide them with a resource to try to get out of that situation to help them. Necessary, crucial work. But how do we add and continue to look to ways to transform? Where are there opportunities for us to transform so that we limit the amount of transaction that we have to do ultimately? Because there's going to be a continuation, a crisis, so to speak, of having to transact with populations that are harmed by things if we cannot get ahead of it. And so it demands that we move upstream. It demands that we move in a dynamic way so that we can take action on some of these issues in different ways. So the mental and behavioral and housing and economic stability groups, they're called labs. They are full of community members, organizations. We have representation from Lee Summit, a whole host of organizations. Are really focused on digging into these issues and finding the portfolio of opportunities for investment that we can make, the leverage points that will have a cascading effect of positive change within these two areas. And it's demanded an entire year of research and work. It's one of the most comprehensive endeavors that we've seen, again, in Eastern Jackson County. It started with 10 to 13 organizations, and it's grown to over 70 different organizations that have participated in this process and are contributing to this process. And we hope to present the labor of that process to all of you as This is what comes from this. These are the opportunities that we have in Eastern Jackson County to affront change. Some of them are things that you're already doing. But again, there could be leverage points that we could take advantage of as a community of organizations and community members to move forward. And so all of this data, the comprehensive encyclopedia of data, is available online, Jackson County Public Health, jcph.org. We have city-level reports that look at city-level outcomes so that you can kind of ignore everything else and just peruse through a few pages. But more so than anything, we exist to support you at the community level. And just as I had mentioned with the Lee Summit Wellness Commission, we have the availability of, as a health department, to provide you with support, whether it be epidemiological, research, data analysis, anything that we can do to provide context from a health lens on a variety of different issues. And so I would offer that service up as often as we can help you. We would love to do so. With that, I appreciate your time today and listening to me talk through data this late in the evening. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me see what questions we have for you. Councilmember Shields.
Mayor, I don't really have any specific questions. I was just thinking this seems like a really great resource for a wellness commission, so I hope that it's been shared with them and maybe they can spend some time looking at this. And I know that part of their job is to bring back recommendations for action to us, so I would hope that maybe this conversation continues down that path. Thank you.
You said you met with them?
Yes, met a few weeks ago and spent, I think, 2.5 hours, if I'm misremembering, talking through the data. So very, very thorough meeting, asked brilliant questions. Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Hodges?
Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
But I did have a question. As you were listing all the things that people were saying that, like they can't afford certain things and the poverty level and homeownership rates. What is, from your viewpoint, what are things that we could do to fix those? I know as you're listing the food, the bills, medical bills, prescriptions, that's not really local government stuff. So what exactly do you see that as a local government we could do from our end?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. So I think what I will say is that the assessment phase of this process is just to lift up challenges. And the action phase, which we've been going through for about a year now, is to identify where are there opportunities. And to your point extensively, there's a lot of things that go on at the federal level that we do not have the ability at the local level to influence. Realistically, we do, but we don't,
Right.
sort of thing. And so the task that this group is really taking is to identify the leverage points at the local level that we have the opportunity to change. And so specifically to housing, there could be policies that we look at as it pertains to safety of housing that impact the stock of housing, things like that. We don't necessarily have the full portfolio of solutions, of interventions available just yet. But later this year, in the next 3 to 4 months, that group is going to release that information. And if you will have me, I will be right back here and I will share their information. And it's, again, a good starting point of conversation for the Wellness Commission or whomever to examine some of these things from a Lee Summit Systems perspective to see if they can be opportunities for investment or change.
Okay. And then I was thinking as you were talking again, when you were going over the mental health part of it, are you thinking that we'll do something are you guys going to talk to we have over 70 churches and I know most are willing to help in that area, but maybe people just don't realize that they are willing to help. Are you partnering with those entities or no?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So we actually have several representatives that sit on both labs from our faith-based community. I'm lucky enough that I sit on the board of Lease Summit Cares. I've been involved in a lot of different Lease Summit specific entities, and so I have extensive relationships with a whole host of different partners, and we've incorporated a lot of them into this process. The challenge is always going to be, and when we talk about the safety net system, it's the fragmentation, duplication, and inefficiency. And it's just a natural part of such a large structure and a large system. But when we start asking people in crisis to navigate that system, to identify where's my entry point, it's almost unbearable. And then we heard that a lot through our focus groups. And so part of this look and this examination, it's not necessarily just outside, it's looking in within that social safety net system. Where are there opportunities for us to improve that system? How do we tweak structures of that system so that we address challenges with entry, or take advantage of the fact that we have so many great partners, such a philanthropic community, to ensure that, again, we're not duplicating resources and we're being efficient with the dollars when we get them. And that's part of the question, part of the examination throughout this process.
Okay, so you're saying we may have more than what people know about. We need to just utilize what we have, not necessarily bring something new in, just utilize what we've already got.
That could be one of the solutions, for sure, absolutely. And I think if you just examine the grant applications that come into some of our local larger foundations, you'll see the duplication. There's so many organizations that are doing fantastic work. It's not organized from a supply and demand concept. It's basically whatever I can provide that allows me to meet the deliverables of my scope. And so again, it requires a dynamic examination of the structures that we have to see where are there opportunities. Some of it's going to be challenging, that we can't reform a system that's been in existence forever. But there's opportunities and there's leverage points that exist, and we just have to find them and exploit them for good.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rader.
Thank you, Mayor. That was an excellent presentation. It was a little bit disheartening, but, it's real. You may have already answered my question with Councilmember Hodges' questions, but you met with the Wellness Commission and you spent 2.5 hours with them. So from here, what exactly are the action steps that you will be doing? Do you know? That you will be doing in the future, so that we're staying connected and we know that we're partnering and we're doing things that we need to do for our part of it to move forward.
Absolutely. And from a basis level, I think that meeting was fantastic to establish a relationship, so that if they are conducting some sort of analysis that they require, again, a data analysis or a data analyst or epidemiological research, we can provide that connection with them in the work that they're doing. But what I will say is the first thing that this group, this InCollab, has been tasked with doing is creating these extensive systems maps around these issues. And systems map is a very technical term, but it basically refers to how can we map the trajectory of the social safety net system or any system around these particular issues. How do we better understand all of the factors that come into play as it pertains to housing, right? When we talk about housing, that's a massive, massive issue, and it's very, very complex. But if we can begin to map that and understand what variables are impacting others, it allows us to potentially find the leverage points or the linchpins within the system that will have cascading positive change should we choose to exploit them. And so that systems mapping process is very, very extensive. They've spent hours, almost 12 months of work. And it's, again, one of the biggest efforts I've ever been a part of. But they're trying to refine this systems map so that it meets an understanding across the population. We've had experts come in, we've had organizations come in, they've said one thing, we've taken the maps out into the community, and the community's like, no, that doesn't happen like that. It's different, change it. And so it's that give and take process of understanding that will result in inevitably that kind of portfolio of solutions, that portfolio or package of the things that we feel from a systems perspective we can do to affect positive change. And as I mentioned before, we expect to release that. They're kind of nearing the end of this process in the next 3 months or so. And so it's a really comprehensive assessment phase and then kind of a proposal of action or opportunities for investment phase. It's not necessarily saying like you have to do all these things or this is the only way, but it's identifying through research, through an evidence base, hey, we know that if we make these changes or these tweaks, we predict that we'll see this cascading change. And it's an opportunity to invest more from a strategic lens than just saying like we need more programs without understanding of the true need, basically.
Are you speaking specifically about housing or all programs?
Housing is one of them. It's specific to economic stability and housing and mental health. And they take a specific lens because those are big areas. But housing is definitively a lens that was taken. And that is something that is reflected in that systems map. And I know that they'll have some recommendations based on the work that they've been doing thus far.
And you said 3 months. So will we be able to access this from this website that you provided us?
Yeah, jcph.org, or I will be happy to come back and summarize it for you as well. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm going to say Ray D because I'm going to mess up your name.
No worries.
Galecki.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Very good.
Yeah, you've got it.
Thank you for the presentation. It is a lot of data. So we're a council that's all about action. So that's why we're asking about that, because those are the same spots. My questions that I wrote down too is what kind of action items are you talking about? And you're saying more to come.
Absolutely. I will be back, I promise.
And just the big part to me is you talk about organizational partners, and you threw a few names out there, but just and this report is Eastern Jackson County, and then you drill down to Lee Summit with some of your slides and such. So we just want to know that we're being engaged as a community, and because that's one of the action items is advocating throughout the year, or more consistently, not just with a report every once in a while. So hopefully that's part of the action items is some type of systematic communication. And when we put the Wellness Commission together, one of the main priorities that they came back and reported to us is they want to be a hub of information and be able to connect and engage and keep everyone in the know. So I'm guessing that's going to be, maybe similar to what you might bring back, but we do appreciate you coming in tonight, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Well, I think they sent out like 22,000 postcards in that last survey. I wonder how many the next survey, how many postcards they sent, or how many people they touched base with. But we're going to find out in a second here, because we are going into a citizen survey presentation. Ryan Murray with the ETC Institute is here. He's been here many times before, actually. And his data, as always, gives us a very clear picture of who is Lee Summit, what do our citizens say and think, and it's a great snapshot. So, Mr. Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Baird. Thank you, members of council, for having me again this evening. It's a pleasure to be back up here. I see some new faces as well as some recently reseated faces. So congratulations to everybody who had their election in April. It's a great pleasure to be here in front of you tonight. For the new member who is probably a little less aware of ETC Institute, we're based in Olathe, Kansas. We've been around for about 40 years. We're really the gold standard or the market leader in market research for government organizations. So we do these surveys all over the country, as you can see on the map. I've managed probably over 500 in my time with ETC Institute, but we do about 250 to 400 a year. So we're really well equipped to handle this type of research, a little bit different than what you just heard, but still significant nonetheless. And the clicker's not working, so I'm going to use the keyboard. So I always like to frame these processes up for us. It's an objective assessment. We're going to compare your performance regionally and nationally, most important regionally for you all with the Kansas City Metro specific average. We'll compare some trends from past results most recently conducted in 2019, so it's been a little while. And to contextualize that, for most clients, we're not really paying too close of attention to pre-COVID trends, just because expectations have changed with most residents from that time. We talk about methodology. It was a 6-page survey, very similar to the previous survey with some unique questions. We'll see one of those at the very end here. We mail that to a random sample of households based on a full sample of all your residential households within the city. took about 15 minutes for most folks to complete it, between about 14 or 16 based on online survey administration methods. Almost 800 completed surveys, 775, drops our margin of error to 3.5% at the 95% level of confidence, which basically tells us 95 out of 100 times we should get these same results plus or minus that 3.5% margin of error. What you're looking at here now is a census block group map of the city, so not technically the full city boundaries, but the census block groups within. We use this map to make sure that we're geographically dispersing our responses from throughout the community. Previous presenters 100% correct. There are and there can be folks that you leave out. Our process does a good job of capturing most of that. We want to make sure the demographics, what you'll find in your full report, as well as the geographic distribution of the responses is solid. We talk about major findings. Perceptions hold high still within the city. This is very similar to the story of the water survey. Almost 90% of residents are satisfied with the overall quality of life. That's 8 percentage points above our Kansas City metro average, which includes 17 communities that we regularly administer surveys for. These communities have been doing it for multiple decades, which means every other year they're assessing their ratings on these exact same questions that you're asking here. Almost 3/4 of residents are also satisfied with the overall quality of services provided by the city. Now that is right aligned with our Kansas City metro average, but significantly above our U.S. and our more regional plains average. Our priorities for improvement based on the important satisfaction analysis focus on major city streets, buildings and facilities, flow of traffic, police services, and quality of new commercial development. I did want to highlight police services. I think Chief is in the room this evening. That is because satisfaction is extremely high, but importance is also very high. So it's not that the satisfaction is low on the police services item. I just want to make that extremely clear. The other 3 items on this list are slightly below average satisfaction, which is why they're pushed up into those high priority items. The important satisfaction analysis, we'll get to it in a moment, but really what it focuses on areas that are below average satisfaction, above average importance. But when a specific item like police or public safety reaches a certain point of importance, it kind of heightens that overall rating and puts it into the high priority. So it means that we should really be focused on continuing the high level of service that Chief and the city are being able to provide to residents, but it's by no means a referendum or a, hey, we're not doing as well as we once did, or it didn't have the high perceptions that we once did in the past. When we talk about benchmarking, it's really important to kind of frame this up. It's all in your full report. The major takeaway here is that we compared your results to some of the hardest metrics in the country that we have. That is that Kansas City metro average. We only use that for other high-performing organizations within the community. When we talk about your perceptions, trends over time are looking good, but where I mentioned earlier, pre-COVID trends are just a little bit of a misnomer. Expectations have changed. Ratings generally have dropped. We've seen that in our national averages. You'd see very similar trend lines here to our national averages, comparing those blue and yellow bars alone. When we talk about perceptions of the community, we see that you're extremely competitive with the Kansas City metro average, which is where we want to be. Those are peer communities within the region. The blue and orange lines, we've removed the numbers so they're not distracting, but you can see just how far and away you're above that plains and U.S. region. Some of that mapping, to draw back on that yellow map with the dots, you want to always make sure that you're kind of examining these maps with a grain of salt. You want to make sure that there's enough dots or enough of those red dots within each one of these census block groups before really making kind of a move or a jump on any of the data. I wanted to provide this one to let you all know that, throughout the entire city, it seems like we're equitably providing services to residents based on the high overall quality of life ratings. You might find other public works related items, city street maintenance issues, and you might find a little bit more pinpointed areas of concentrated dissatisfaction in some of those maps, but still always please be mindful of that overall yellow map to make sure that you're not looking at a census block group that's relatively unpopulated. For example, that one in that bottom right-hand corner is just a little less populated than some of those central zones. We talk about likelihood of recommendation of the city. This is, again, a little bit more evidence where perceptions and opinions have changed slightly, but folks are still willing to recommend the city. This is comparison of 2024 to 2019. We're only thinking that the only significant differences here are those that outlie that 3.5% margin of error. So we're really only looking at that middle one that's still at 82. Could jump a little bit in our next survey, but the other 2 are well within the 2019 ratings. We talk about feelings of safety. I wanted to bring this up as well because police were a high priority. The only item where we're significantly down on is in city parks at night. All of the other items are well within our prior ratings, and actually really exceptional ratings. When we talk about traveling on streets in our city parks during the day, I think in the city of Lee Summit, parks close at 9, and I might be mistaken 11, so it's a little bit later than I thought, but still, not a lot of folks in parks after dark. We talk about overall quality of city services. I've highlighted our 4 priorities for improvement. As you can see, overall quality of police services, 3rd highest level of satisfaction from all of those major buckets of services that we've assessed. The 3 major priorities for improvements are those ones that have elevated dissatisfied and very dissatisfied marks. The neutral ratings are always, as I've said in the past, passing grades. Residents don't have a negative or an overly positive perception of those particular rating items. More benchmarking, I just wanted to kind of show the electeds, as I've already discussed with staff, how far and away you are above some of those regional averages. The Plains region is more of a national survey that we administer to these states in the Plains region. U.S. surveys, 10,000 nationwide surveys, but that Kansas City Metro, if you're beating that in any of these particular areas outside of that 3.5% or 4%, you know that you're performing exceptionally well when we compare you to local performers. We talk about city leadership. You've also received extremely positive ratings. This has been a difficult one. I know 54% does not sound good, but when you look at the Kansas City Metro average, it's at 55, our Plains region at 26, and less than 40%, less than 4 out of 10 Americans would give a very satisfied or satisfied response when asked to rate the effectiveness of city manager and professional staff. Same with elected officials. You'd see that at 38% nationally. So at 52%, we might not be overly excited about those results, but that's why the contextualization and the comparison is so overly important in these results. When we talk about priorities for investment, I'm referring again to the important satisfaction analysis. The full methodology and findings are in your report. What I wanted to highlight tonight was our overall categories of services. As you can see again, quality of police services, 3rd highest satisfaction, number 1 in importance, 77% of respondents indicating they'd like us to continue to emphasize that particular service. But when we talk about maintenance of streets and flow of traffic, those are high-performing organization priorities, not for lower-performing organizations. I usually use police services as long as you don't have police services in your high-priority item, you're in good shape. This is a little bit different, where almost 90% of our residents or 80% of our residents are satisfied with police, and almost 80% also say, please continue to emphasize that service. It's not a problem area, it's just some place that we need to continue to invest. Maintenance is really that high priority item for most respondents. The other item that could potentially, and I play with these numbers just slightly, but if we had just a few percentage points up in the most important rank, for the enforcing private property or building ordinances, we would have seen that spike into that 0.1 or higher, which would have given it a high priority for rating, or priority for investment. Excuse me. This is another way to examine this particular data. This is from the full report. Again, I've highlighted our 4 priorities for improvement. And then because the maintenance of streets, sidewalks, and city buildings was our highest priority for improvement, I wanted to show you this. This is really telling us that it's mostly about city streets, and then it's about sidewalks, and then all of those items in that lighter red color flow right below that. Adequacy of bicycle accommodations is becoming more and more important, but those other items at the top of the list should always take kind of the fair share, the larger share of that most important rank, leaving most of those items kind of in the position that they're going to be in most likely moving forward. So really it's about condition of streets for residents. If we can continue to make investments there, tell residents that we're making those investments, hopefully the satisfaction will begin to rise here soon. Could also be a timing thing. We could also consider, and I think I've talked with staff about doing the survey in the fall before the winter. We would also be through most of our road construction at that point in time. We would likely see some fluctuation. I couldn't tell you whether or not it'd be outside of our margin of error, but I would assume it'd be a fluctuation there. When we talk about community planning, or excuse me, communication in cities, it's really important to plan for the future. One of the great things about your overall communication questions is that you're performing very well in comparison. So again, 62%, not necessarily a flashy number, not a huge majority of folks, but comparatively, we're performing extremely well there. When we talk about, excuse me, I I'm all out of sorts here. Some of my slides appear to be wrong. This is definitely on me, I think. So I apologize here. But when we talk about the sources of communication that most folks are using, we kind of have a conglomerate of social media and the internet, followed by local TV news and email e-newsletters. That's where we should continue to focus our efforts, make sure that we're engaging and communicating to folks through those means. I've had discussions with staff on your communication. I think it's really top notch. I think a lot of folks are getting all of the pertinent information in the places they most need it. We should just continue to invest in the areas that they're telling us that they like to get that information. The highlighted items are also the most preferred items in this particular list. When we talk about cable television and the use of the city's cable access channels, we asked respondents whether or not they have cable television in their home. About 44% of respondents indicated that they do. I'm sure that's way down from 2019 if we'd asked it. And then in 14A, we asked how often you're actually watching the city's government access cable channel, and 67%, or more than 2/3, indicated not at all. Now again, these results should hold true for the majority of the community. 1 person indicated every day, 10 persons said at least once per week. We get to 26 at once per month, and once or twice per year we're at 73. So the vast majority of those folks that have cable indicated they're not using that access cable channel, and the recommendation would be to analyze the investment in that particular service and determine whether or not, the 37 people or so who are watching it at least once per month or more could get that information somewhere else potentially. When we talk about additional findings, I did want to bring up one interesting question that we asked this year that'll probably just be a single-year question that we've asked. It's question 22. We asked which trash and solid waste services residents think are most important. This was a way to help kind of assess where residents kind of place value in this particular service. Currently, you have multiple haulers within the city. Really, the main thing, which I probably could have guessed, but I still wanted to make sure we asked the question correctly, was cost of service. Most residents are most concerned about cost, followed by the availability of other various services, such as recycling or bulky item pickup, and then the timeliness, with the other items kind of falling to the side there. I apologize for kind of speeding through that. I know it's been a lengthy meeting for you all. I'm here for any questions, and any questions I can't answer tonight, I'll get a written response back to staff as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with Councilmember Pryor.
Thank you, Mayor. So my question is regarding, and it might be more for Mr. Snook, but regarding the Parks Department, I noticed that a lot of people said that they do not feel safe in the city parks at night. So I was wondering, I know last summer we did, or you guys did the security. Is that coming back this summer to patrol the different parks?
Snook Administrator, yes. Actually, it's already in place. So we contract with a private security firm, and we have them out nightly doing park checks, and then we have them stationed specifically at certain parks at certain times. So that has already been implemented, and will go through probably the end of June or early July.
Okay, why stop in June or July? I mean, why not through?
Our issues tend to be now through the end of May. Well, probably like early May through early June is when we see the most issues. And so we try to get in front of it and start it in April. We started late April, and we're going to run it all the way through the next 2 months. And if we have problems, we'll continue to extend it. But if not, we'll go ahead and discontinue it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Councilmember, I think I might be able to find a few more communities that have maybe asked this question. This is definitely not out of the norm. So when we ask about city parks, we typically get really high ratings during the day. At night, it just seems to plummet. And, there's not a lot of correlation there, but I think I could probably find a few other communities and maybe provide some contextualization for that.
Last summer, we had a rough summer with some things. So I think that may be where a lot of it was coming from. So thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Councilmember DeMoro.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start on the waste, the waste questions. And I think, if I remember correctly, when you first came to us with the plans for the survey, I had questions on the waste. The one I don't understand is the ability to change providers, because is that exactly how it was posted in?
Yeah, the ability to choose different providers. Yep, it would have been verbatim. 99% sure on that. I can look that up.
Because that one is a little troubling in that they have 100% ability to change providers. Mm-hmm. And so I just wondered if that's exactly how it was asked.
It is.
that one is kind of confusing to me. And I just wanted to know if you had any further information on that.
I don't have anything tonight in terms of digging into that particular one, but I believe the idea, and I may have even been the one to suggest that, but we wanted to understand, all those factors. So I didn't want to leave one off. I think we may have included an other statement for which we didn't have any major consensus. Yeah, we did have a something else. So some of the open-ended comments might clue us in, but I think the idea was, is choice really a major factor for you, or is it something else? And it seems like cost and availability of services.
Well, the cost doesn't surprise me. Because
Yeah.
I have that issue. But yeah, that one I just wondered, is there something?
It's an odd one.
That
Yeah.
people aren't understanding because they
Yeah.
have a 100% chance to change providers.
Yeah, and I think the item was, you have the ability now, would you be mad if we cut that off, or would you be upset if you no longer had the choice, or something along that line. So I think it was kind of an exploratory option there.
Okay.
Same with customer service. I mean, a lot of us probably don't use
Oh,
customer
yeah.
service
Yeah.
for our trash providers very often.
And then I was wondering also, of course, the sample size is quite small for a city of our population. I mean, it hardly even charts if you look at the percentage. And I guess basically, or simply, what is the best way to increase participation? I mean, I know all the efforts that went through to get people to respond, but it's just, it hardly even charts.
Yeah, and the response rate is good, about 18% or so. So out of those who were contacted, we had a reasonable rate of response. In terms of, I think contextualization comparison is always a good place to start. City of San Antonio, I just mailed their survey yesterday. I'm collecting a total of 1,000 completed surveys for a community that's significantly way above and beyond the size of Lee Summit. So there's a point at which the cost outweighs the reliability of the results, and as surveys increase, the reliability of the results, or the margin of error decreases, so the reliability is also increasing. In terms of pushing more surveys, I think the few things that we could do would talk about potentially a second mailing of the full survey. Now, we will mail to those who have not responded after a certain period of time, but typically we'll do postcards, and we'll do other items. The contractual goal, I think, is 700 for this process. 775 gets us that demographic representation and geographic representation throughout the city. Beyond what we did this time, we could potentially advance notify folks a little bit better, potentially. We could let the survey run longer and potentially doing it in 2 waves. And that would be a really elongated process for staff where we'd likely administer and then pause. And then we'd administer again, and then I'd probably present 2 sets of data before and after in a way. That would be another way of kind of increasing the overall sample size. It's also really important to note that at 1,000 completed surveys, you drop your margin of error to 3, and you don't get sub 2 until I think you get to 4,000 plus surveys. So the margins of error really don't start to decrease that much at 700, and you're one of the larger sample size in the metro as well. It's definitely not the smallest. I think in Lenexa we do 400, in Olathe we do 1,200 a year. So there's a few comparable communities around here. More notification. Response rates have been suffering, though. I'm trying to get creative and to see, what could we do. But I think maybe a good discussion with staff next time will kind of give us an idea. Maybe we can game plan a little bit earlier. If we do the survey in the fall, we could use summer to prep people and potentially do a few things to maybe even, break 800, which is what I think we did maybe in 19. So.
And as far as you know, 100% of the respondents are from Lee Summit.
Yes, there's a verification question. Your address is printed on your paper survey, so we know where it was mailed and know where it's coming from. The verification question at the end of the online survey harkens back to our random sample. So you're asked to put in your home address. If it doesn't match the random sample, it's not included in this sample.
And then one more question, on the government access and the cable.
Yeah.
I mean, you lump that together.
Yeah.
Was there any further breakdown? Because, of course, there is the government access channel, and then there is cable, our Lee Summit.
Yeah, so I think the intent behind this question was to assess who is actually watching the cable channels, the cable versions of these channels. One of the things I know from being an elected official in my own city is there's quite an investment to some of this sometimes, and people always question the usability or the overall use case of it. Now, there's some margin of error to this, and it's a little bit elevated just based on the 341, but we're still looking at about a 5% margin of error. So even taking away 5% from the not at all, we're still at above 60% of folks saying, we don't watch it at all. If you added to that, you'd be at about 73% almost, which would be even a larger majority. So I think the question was asked in a way that made sure that we were assessing how frequently you watched only if you had cable, because there are all those internet options as well. But a vast majority of folks seem to not watch it frequently. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Did you do a drill down on, I'm sure you did, on social media? Or, I'm sorry, on where people get their information about Lee Summit? It's one of the next slides.
Yep. This one?
Is it possible, is it in the report, the breakdown of where they get where they're going for their information about Lee Summit with regard to social media?
In terms of specific social media use, no. I think the idea for your communications staff, and we discussed this briefly, was they're posting to most channels. What I know personally from professional experience is it's Facebook, Instagram. It's definitely not Twitter or X. That one falls way to the wayside. And then Nextdoor is kind of its own beast that I wouldn't necessarily include in social media because it's so community focused. It's a little bit different. So I think your communications staff, one of the things about your survey is that we can be less detailed, and it provides your subject matter experts with great advice or great recommendations in terms of where to go next. And so sometimes with high-performing organizations, I don't need to put Facebook specifically or Instagram specifically, but it's something we can most definitely do in future years and then aggregate those responses together. But when you have exceptional staff, you have this ability to kind of use this data as a guiding force, as a decision-making tool, without actually having to ask some of that. So unfortunately, in question 12, we did not specifically ask about each one of those communication methods, but we did offer Facebook,
Difficult when you
Twitter.
sit up here because we each have our own bias, and
Sure.
I actually read newsletters.
Yeah.
I read all of it, so, but that's the minority.
Yeah.
So, just like when you say that X or Twitter has fallen off, I can believe that, but I don't
We
know
don't see
that.
it. Yeah.
I didn't,
Nope.
I don't know that.
Yeah. No, especially for a city of Lee Summit. I could show you other cities. I think Lenexa asked that specific question, but we did parenthesize Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Nextdoor, and LinkedIn, so we provided which ones we were kind of generalizing about. But you're completely correct. Might be a reason why it got such a high level of selection as well, because we grouped all 5 of those together.
Okay. All right, thank you. Other questions? Well, you did a great job again tonight.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, it's great. It's really good data. I'm sure, Mr. Dunning, do you and staff use this information quite a bit?
Yes, we do. We do. Excuse me. And that's part of our thought process behind some of our budget approach too. Where might we allocate more resources towards, and what might that be? So it is very helpful data for us.
All right. We need some data on here that says, do they get their data from their computer or their phone?
I'd be happy to do a follow-up.
Yeah, that's the fun stuff too.
Yeah, yeah.
Then we all realize, not all of us, but some of us realize how old we are
Yeah.
because we still use, these things.
Yeah, so question 33 in your survey was an interest in a panel group or a research panel. I'd be happy to work with staff to do follow-up specifically on social media and communication. So maybe I'll shoot over some ideas for that to Assistant City Manager.
Anything that's fascinating along those
Yeah.
lines.
Great. Yeah, works for me.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. It's a pleasure.
Yep. Okay. Well, I bet you guys, all that data, where are you going to put it all? Is it in there? Okay. She's locked it away. That's why I put you right next to me, so I could say, yes, I could say, can you analyze and pull this data for me? We are on proposed ordinances forwarded from committee. Councilmember Rader, would you like to start us off tonight with reading for second reading, Bill number 24-087.
Thank you, Mayor. I move for second reading, Bill number 24-087, an ordinance approving the City of Lee Summit Entitlement Community Development Block Grant 2024-25 Annual Action Plan.
All right, we have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-087 by Councilmember Rader, seconded by Councilmember DeMoro. Discussion? This went through I don't see that on there. There it is, 313. So I know that something we do every year, but I think there were some slight changes this year. Any questions? All right, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. And it's approved 8-0. Councilmember Rader, would you please read for adoption?
I move for adoption of Bill number 24-087, an ordinance approving the City of Lee Summit Entitlement Community Development Block Grant 2024-25 Annual Action Plan.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-087 by Councilmember Rader, seconded by Councilmember Pryor. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. And it's adopted, 8-0. Thanks for coming tonight. You waited for that, I think. Is that why you're here? Part of it? Yeah, no. We appreciate you being here. It's nice. Councilmember Pryor, would you please read Bill number 24-088?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to advance to a second reading, Bill number 24-088, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an agreement, RFP 2024-034, by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and HBK Engineering, LLC for the lead service line inventory in the amount of $235,092, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-088 by Councilmember Pryor, seconded by Councilmember Hodges. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Move to second reading unanimously. Councilmember Pryor, would you please?
Thank you. I move for adoption, Bill number 24-088, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an agreement, RFP 2024-034, by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and HBK Engineering, LLC for the lead service line inventory in the amount of $235,092, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-088 by Councilmember Pryor, seconded by Councilmember Hodges. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. That bill's adopted. Thank you. Councilmember Shields, would you please read Bill number 24-089?
Thank you, Mayor. I move for second reading, Bill number 24-089, an ordinance approving change order number 1 to the agreement for the construction of Water Main Replacement FY23 project number 721-1 between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and Wiedenmann, Inc. for an increase of $856,396 for a revised agreement amount of $4,454,998 to, and to increase the project timeline by 90 days and authorize the city manager to execute the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-089 by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Carlisle. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passes 8-0. Councilmember Shields, would you please?
Thank you, Mayor, and I move for adoption of Bill number 24-089, an ordinance approving change order number 1 to the agreement for the construction of the Water Main Replacement FY23 project number 721-1 between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and Wiedenmann, Inc. for an increase of $856,396 for a revised agreement amount of $4,454,998 and to increase the project timeline by 90 days and authorizing the city manager to execute the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-089 by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Hodges. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. And that bill is adopted. Thank you. Councilmember Hodges, would you please read Bill number 24-090?
I move to second reading Bill number 24-090, an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement regarding maintenance of sidewalks by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for North Outer Road 50 West, also known as Blue Parkway, located east of Blackwell Road, and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-090 by Councilmember Hodges, seconded by Councilmember DeMoro. Discussion? Yes, Councilmember Carlisle.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick question, and I don't know if somebody's going to pull the documents up on this, but, so I had somebody reach out to me and ask me what this is connecting and why we need a sidewalk up there. Can anybody answer that?
Evening, Michael Park, Director of Public Works. So this is in relation to a development project at the northeast corner of Blackwell Interchange at 50 Highway. And so as part of any development project, our development standards require sidewalk. You know, it's just a standard piece of infrastructure now that we expect any development to occur, to provide. And the developer is more than willing to meet those conditions of its approval, provide the sidewalk, but the adjacent road is Blue Parkway. It's a MoDOT outer road, and MoDOT saying, we'll permit you to construct this sidewalk, and it connects over to the existing sidewalk that's immediately to the west, on over to Blackwell Road and throughout the interchange area, subject to the city agreeing to maintain that sidewalk. So that's what this agreement does. It's very similar to all of our other agreements when we enter into partnership with the MoDOT project, and they say, we'll put in sidewalk for you, but you have to maintain that sidewalk, much like through Blackwell Interchange or Strother Interchange or through Chipman, which we most recently had done. So it's become kind of typical practice for MoDOT and a condition that we want sidewalks as a community. They're not going to provide them for the communities unless we maintain them.
Thank you. So this is really just so that we can continue to have our community be walkable, and for the safety of our citizens, we have to ask MoDOT if we can do this, and then we have to maintain them for the life of the sidewalks.
Yeah,
They
so
are now
either
our responsibility from here on out.
they would be our responsibility for maintenance here out. Correct. Now, so in this case, it's a developer that's constructing it, but if the city had a project, yeah, on a MoDOT right of way, we would have to enter the same agreement we have in the past.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, is that even though they don't mow that interchange? I'm just saying that that interchange in particular, they abandoned.
Yes, like most interchanges.
Well, that
That's
one
the
was
case.
pretty bad.
And that one is.
I mean, it was brand new, and then weeds were everywhere,
Yes.
3 feet, 4 feet high.
I can't argue with you. Yes, the weeds
Okay,
are tall.
I'm just
and
saying.
The maintenance is lacking, and
We
that
need to
is-
throw a little clause in here somewhere that says, if you mow,
I know.
we will put the sidewalks up.
And to follow on some of the discussion tonight, I think it really kind of skews some of our reputation and our citizens'
Yeah, it
opinion.
does.
You know, maintenance of streets, and they see these are streets in the city, but
Yeah.
they're not ours.
Yeah, those roundabouts
Yeah.
and such. We need to talk to the Beautification Commission about wildflowers, but, all right, any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in, please record the vote. And that, which one is that? Was that second reading? Motion to second reading. Councilmember Hodges, would you please?
I move for the adoption of Bill number 24-090, an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement regarding maintenance of sidewalks by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for North Outer Road 50 West, also known as Blue Parkway, located east of Blackwell Road, and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-090 by Councilmember Hodges, seconded by Councilmember DeMoro. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. That bill is adopted unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Carlisle, would you please read Bill number 24-091?
Thank you, Mayor. I move Bill number 24-091, an ordinance approving a professional services agreement with TUSA Consulting Services for the Joint Operations Facility and PD Court's Phase 2 Renovations Project in the amount of $170,280 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same. Be second read.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-091 by Councilmember Carlisle, seconded by Councilmember Hodges. Discussion? Yes, Councilmember Carlisle.
Thank you, Mayor. I also had somebody reach out to me on this one. And it's a sole source agreement, and they were wanting to know what that is and why we agreed to it. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Travis Forbes, the Chief of Police. This agreement is for TUSA Consulting Services specific to radio needs in the new communications center that we're building as part of the Joint Operations Facility. TUSA Consulting has designed our radio system about 8 years ago when we had a public safety bond issue for police radio, actually police fire, city radio. And they've actually designed a significant portion of the Mars radio system for the entire region. So when we're, and they further have worked extensively on the 911 system. So when we're setting up this new communication center, we feel it's pretty vital that it functions very effectively in that regard with police radio, 911 systems and such. And based upon their extensive knowledge and expertise, they really are probably the only choice for the city to go with this radio project. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It moves forward unanimously. Councilmember Carlisle, would you please?
Thank you, Mayor. I move bill number 24-091, an ordinance approving a professional services agreement with TUSA Consulting Services for the Joint Operations Facility and PD Courts Phase 2 Renovations Project in the amount of $170,280 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same be adopted.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt bill number 24-091 by Councilmember Carlisle, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It's adopted unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Shields, would you please read bill number 24-092?
Thank you, Mayor. I move for second reading of bill number 24-092, an ordinance approving change order number 4 to the agreement for McClendon Ditch Sewer Improvements Project 425 between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and Infrastructure Solutions, LLC, to increase the project timeline by 103 calendar days and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, bill number 24-092 by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Rader. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. That bill moves to second reading unanimously. Councilmember Shields, would you please?
Mayor, I now move for adoption of bill number 24-092, an ordinance approving change order number 4 to the agreement for McClendon Ditch Sewer Improvements Project number 425 between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and Infrastructure Solutions, LLC, to increase the project timeline by 103 calendar days and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt bill number 24-092 by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Rader. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. And that's adopted unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Hodges, would you please read bill number 24-093?
I move to second reading bill number 24-093, an ordinance approving the First Amendment to the Cooperative Service Agreement by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, Lee Summit Municipal Airport, and the United States Department of Agriculture, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, Wildlife Services to cooperate in a wildlife damage management project and authorizing the mayor to execute the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, bill number 24-093 by Councilmember Hodges, seconded by Councilmember DeMauro. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passes 8-0. Councilmember Hodges, would you please?
I move for the adoption of bill number 24-093, ordinance approving the First Amendment to the Cooperative Service Agreement by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, Lee Summit Municipal Airport, and the United States Department of Agriculture, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, Wildlife Services to cooperate in a wildlife damage management project and authorizing the mayor to execute the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt bill number 24-093 by Councilmember Hodges, seconded by Councilmember Pryor. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All All votes are in. Please record the vote. And it's adopted unanimously. Thank you. Now that takes us to proposed ordinances first reading. Councilmember DeMoro, would you please read bill number 24-094?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to advance to second reading, Bill number 24-094, an ordinance authorizing execution of an intergovernmental agreement by and between the City of Lee Summit and the Junior College District of Metropolitan, Kansas City, Missouri, also known as Metropolitan Community College, for its use of its precision track and course.
Thank you. I have a motion to advance to second reading. Bill number 24-094 by Councilmember DeMoro, seconded by Councilmember Hodges. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. That bill moves to second reading unanimously. Thank you. I need a motion to postpone bill number 24-025 to date certain of June 18th, 2024.
Mayor, I move to postpone Bill number 24-025 to a date certain of June 18th, 2024.
Thank you. I have a motion to postpone till June 18th, 2024 by Councilmember DeMoro, seconded by Councilmember Carlisle. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passes 8-0. Thank you. Councilmember DeMoro, would you mind doing the next one too? Thank you.
To postpone to a date certain Bill number 24-056 to June 2024.
Thank you. We have a motion to move bill number 24-056 to June 18th, 2024 by Councilmember DeMoro, seconded by Councilmember Carlisle. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. And it's postponed till June 18th. Committee reports. I think we've had much in the way of committee reports. Councilmember Shields.
We will have a finance and budget meeting on June 3rd, first Monday of the month. So the new members of the committee that just got appointed tonight, make sure to mark your calendars. Thank you.
I feel sorry for him.
4 p.m. in the chambers, and it's going to be a long one. So
I feel sorry for him because you're a slave driver. No? Nobody agreed with me, so I guess I'm wrong. Anybody else? Committee report? No? Council comments? Staff roundtable?
Thank you, Mayor. With your permission, I'd like Chief Forbes to update you all on some efforts that our SNAP program, Secure Neighborhoods and Property, that's been in place for a little over a year. I think you'll be like to hear these results. So if you'll allow Chief Forbes to just share some quick data with you, I think it'd be helpful.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Travis Forbes, Police Chief, back up here. The SNAP program was the result of about a year ago. We noticed property crimes in particular in Lee Summit were growing. Thankfully, that's our biggest problem in the city of Lee Summit is property crimes and not violent crimes, but it was still a concern. And we feel that the best way to address this, we kind of got together as a group and felt it is to take the intelligence that we have, deploy resources based upon that intelligence, but also work with our residents, our homeowners, and our businesses to discuss the issues. We noticed a large amount of our thefts from vehicles were unlocked vehicles. Theft of vehicles were unlocked vehicles with keys in the car. And then we also had an issue with burglaries with garage doors that were left open mistakenly or just somebody forgot or whatever. So we have our first full year of data, and I really credit this with the officers and my community interaction officers who've worked to distribute this information to HOAs and others. But in burglaries, from one year to the next, we saw a 47% decrease. For stealings, not quite as good. It was still a decrease, was down 2.5%. And then stolen autos, a 45% decrease from year to year. So we felt that was pretty significant. We were kind of surprised. Now these have continued to decrease in 2024 with the exception of stolen autos. And we feel that we're just experiencing this nationwide kind of epidemic related to Kias and Hyundais and some other cars with electronic ignitions, that they have figured out ways, it's all over TikTok and social media, to how to steal those cars. And we're combating the same issue that our region is with regard to that, but we're still trying for sure. And again, I just credit our officers who have really bought into taking that intelligence information, working in their districts, talking to people, saying, hey, you might shut your garage door. It's not uncommon for them to knock on a door late at night and say, hey, your garage door is open, you might want to shut it. And alerting neighborhoods, hey, there's an issue going on, and we need your help in making sure you secure your valuables and don't leave your laptops on the seats of your car, or your car doors are open, and that sort of thing. So we think it's paying off pretty well, and we also thank our residents for helping us out in combating this issue.
Great news.
Thank you.
Love it. Strategic deployment, is that what you called it?
Yes, yes. Intelligence-led policing really is what it is, but also combined with a bit of community-oriented policing too, working with our community members, because not all these crimes can be driven down by just us.
Yeah.
We have to have help.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Johnny? Well done, everyone. Adjourn this meeting at 9:10.